Now 6 o'clock, I can call this meeting to order. So I'll call the regular meeting of the Green Mountain Water and Sanitation District, June 3rd to order at 6 p.m. and call the roll. And Karen Morgan present.
Dave Whitman present.
Roger Wendell present.
Patrick present. Dave Garner present.
We have a quorum, and for those who were not watching the last special meeting, welcome Director Garner to our regular meeting.
I think.
And Director Morgan, correction, it's the 13th.
June 13th, what did I say?
I thought you said 3rd, that's okay.
Wouldn't be the first time I got it wrong. Thank you. We'll move on to item number 2, Directors Matters. Does anybody have any disclosures to make? Seeing none, moving on to item 3, approvals of additions to and deletions from the agenda. I have a couple. I move the election of officers after public comment. So switch items 4 and 5. So the public comment is first, as usual. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All right, all in favor? Aye. Yeah. Unanimous approval, thank you. Seeing our guest this evening, Dylan, do we need to add an executive session and/or discussion with Fossil Ridge representatives?
Well, we do have a executive session for Fossil Ridge.
We do. We don't generally invite people in or have the public discussion, so that would be add that.
If you want to hear from anyone else and have something separate from the executive session, yes, this should be in addition to the agenda. If the board wishes to hear from anyone outside of public comments.
Okay. Is there any need or awareness? I did not have that on my schedule. I have consultations with you. What do you recommend?
I was only anticipating the executive session. I know that Fossil Ridge and C.R.S. submitted their joint statement, which I provided to the board. I'm happy to address that in or out of executive session.
Okay, so we can hear from them during public comment like usual. Last,
Just
is that,
a thought, if we hear from them in executive session, it breaches.
You would not have, it would not be privileged under attorney-client privilege, and it would, in my opinion, not be confidential.
Right, so that's why we would want to do it separately if
we
we,
would do it separately, yeah,
okay, good.
but it doesn't sound like it sounds like we are fine. I would like to add an item to Directors Matters 10C, hiring a engineer to the emergency circumstances,
In what?
an engineer.
Oh, yeah, to do what?
Due to.
Due to-
emergency
Oh, to do it. Okay,
Yes. Do I have a second?
second.
Any discussion? We can discuss later. Thank you. All in favor, aye.
All right.
Nay.
Director decides. Thank you.
I'm sorry, where on the agenda is it gonna
10C.
be? And C, yeah, okay.
Does anybody else have any additions, deletions? Comments on the agenda?
Given. And maybe this is Tennessee, but given District Manager Tyus's email this afternoon, you might consider addressing a need for district management.
Good point. Can I add, well, we can make that, could we put that into that engineer and district manager discussion?
Sure.
So 10D.
Yeah. I moved to put 10D on the agenda, district manager. We'll roll them up. Yeah. All right, discussion. All right, all in favor? Aye. Unanimous approval, thank you. Okay. Anything else? All right, going. Moving on to item 5, then, public comment. We will now ask for public comment. Members of the public wish to address the board or ask to keep comments civil and related to items in the agenda. Limited to 5 minutes per person. I am going to start with people online, since I see Ludmilla's hand raised. Ludmilla, can I call on you?
Hi, everybody. How's everyone doing this afternoon? It's kind of gloomy out there. Hello, Mr. Gardner. Congratulations.
Thank you.
I just had a couple questions. One was on the capital improvements that you discussed many months ago. There was going to be a list of all the items that needed to be done. Has that ever been generated? You don't have to answer me. I know you don't want to talk to me, but that's okay. And then there was the ravine. I was kind of curious on what was going on with the ravine. And then I know I'm not supposed to make nominations. I don't think anybody told me I could or couldn't. So I'm going to make a nomination for president. And I'd like to have Karen be president. She's done so much and kept us on board here. Fought for her position at where she's at. And I'd like to see everybody smile sometime. It's not that bad. All right, guys, thank you for your time.
Thank you. Anybody else online wish to raise their hand and speak? All right, don't see any right now. Anybody in the room? Yes, sir. Can you state the name for the record?
David Grow with Pottsville Ridge Metro District 1. Terry Larson is with me and Ben Larson is with me. And with your permission, I'd like to read a statement into the record, and then I will give you the copy so you have it. We're here on behalf of Pottsville Ridge Metropolitan District 1, which is a service district for Southern Salterra development. As you know, the developer Brookfield has requested that Green Mountain issue 87 TAP permits and certificates of service for the rest of its build-out, filings 18, 20, and 21. We understand Green Mountain has not issued the TAP permits and certificates, which resulted in Brookfield pursuing litigation in Jefferson County District Court, where it is asking the court to order the Fossil Ridge districts and Green Mountain to provide sewer service. A one-day evidentiary hearing is scheduled for June 28th. As I understand it, it is the Green Mountains Board position that is not a party to that case. As you are all aware, Green Mountain is the service provider to the Salterra development. The only way for sewage to get from the Fossil Ridge to Metro wastewater is through Green Mountain. As a result, Fossil Ridge has no capability to provide the service. Because there was some misunderstanding about the number of units left to build out and the number of EQRs necessary to complete the development, Fossil Ridge District 1 issued a joint statement with Brookfield, confirming the number of EQRs the developers requesting, and again, confirming that Fossil Ridge districts have no objection whatsoever to the Green Mountain issuing the certificates of availability and TAP permits. Fossil Ridge is in a tough and expensive situation given the Brookfield lawsuit, the upcoming depositions, and the trial on the 28th. If there's anything we can do to assist Green Mountain with its decision to issue TAP permits and certificates of availability to Brookfield, we remain available. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Then you will email that.
I'm sorry.
You will email that as well, you said. That's good.
I can if you want. I mean,
That's
no.
And I'm Ben, Blair for the districts. Just wanted to be here in case there were any questions I could help with answering. Thank you.
Yeah, it's easier to put in the minutes if you email it.
Okay.
Okay, I can do that.
Can I ask the question now, or is that inappropriate for public comment?
It's inappropriate for public comment, so I asked to put it on the agenda and there was no takers, so. So I don't see any other
We can do it later.
Public comment?
New business.
Anybody else? Last call? All right, we'll close public comment. Thank you, everyone. So we're moving to item 5, election of officers. This is the annual, not annual, biannual due to the election of new office, new directors. Election of officers. I'd like to have nominations and see if, yes,
I'd like to nominate you for president.
thank you. I would be honored.
Second,
Okay, motion on the table. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, call the vote. All in favor, say aye.
aye.
All opposed?
Nay.
Very good. There's Director Hooks opposed. Motion passes. That leaves us with everybody else.
As we all hide under the table.
Yeah, these are the hard ones. I would like to nominate Director Garner as vice president. If I can pull you in due to he does have the experience from previously on the board. He's got a lot of experience in life generally otherwise, and I know he will have the time to put in all of the work that is going on in the board. There a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you very much. Any discussion? All in favor?
Anybody else want the job?
Anybody else?
Please speak up.
Do you want the job?
I will do the job. That's why I offered my services to the board to do what was needed, but it doesn't mean that I don't respect the fact that you guys were elected and I wasn't. It's important to me. And it might be over time not as relevant, but it's important to me. I guess it means I get to do the dirty work. Thanks.
Answers. All right, all in favor, aye.
Aye.
I'm not in Kansas anymore, Tim.
Director Garner, how do you,
Sorry,
are you voting in this? Are you in favor?
I'll abstain.
Okay, for in favor, Director Garner abstains. Now we have treasurer and secretary. Positions were previously filled through Director Hooks and Hickman. Like those positions, we want to change. Director Wendell,
I think we ought to stick with it.
I nominate Director Wickman as secretary and Director Hooks as treasurer. Do I have a second?
So I second it.
Director Wendell seconds. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Unanimously passed. Thank you all. We have a new slate of officers. Which closes out item 5. Moves us into item 6, approval of minutes. Any discussion on minutes?
There were some typos in the version I got. Anybody else catch those?
Here's the updated version from Director Morgan.
Oh, okay, well, I don't need it. You probably edited.
I did a lot of typos.
Okay, yeah,
Yes.
fine with me.
Can I, where are we at, Mr. Pies, with May's minutes? Any word?
Yeah, so these minutes were emailed out June 5th. And the company that does it, CGS, said they will send out the next ones hopefully this week.
Okay.
Here, so those have been edited. Director Rickman has a slide.
Okay, so
I have a little pet peeve with minutes that I am saying, like to discuss on the record for the person doing the minutes. We have an inconsistent way of noting who is in the meeting. Sometimes we include public members and sometimes we don't. Sometimes we can only get the people whose names are on. So we will have Ludmilla And that is her first name that's presented on her screen. We don't have other people. So if anybody doesn't have any problems, I'd like to suggest to the person taking minutes that we just keep the public's names off unless we read them into the record, just to keep it consistent. Does that make sense? That it leaves how we used to do it. All right. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes then?
I'll move to approve the minutes. As corrected.
Second? I will second. Any discussion? All right, all in favor? Aye.
Abstain.
Director Wendell abstains. The rest are in favor. Okay. Motion passes. We are on to, you did vote, right?
Yes.
The district manager report. Mr. Tives.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for having the district manager report. So we start off with recognitions, and we can't thank, especially Jesse and Sam have done unbelievable Colorado open record requests. That includes thousands of files. So they worked very hard to get that done. And I'd like to special thanks Josh and Doug for doing all kinds of in-depth research dating back to 1996 on a lot of IGA issues with Fossil Ridge and Solterra Bigfield. So, and as noted, I grew up here, and this is the 4th wettest May in record, and we're on track to be a super wet June. And as you know, if you were here in the 70s and 80s, summers were like this, started changing in the 90s. And the drought of 2002 was the worst drought in history. So this has been a lot of water, a lot of good water, a lot of good stream flow. So we're very happy with the water we're receiving. Customer service dashboard looks really good. You know, if you look at Green Mountain Water, is probably one of the only organizations you call where somebody answers the phone. I know I call I call Xfinity all the time and nobody answers. So yeah,
Probably because they can't fix your problem.
oh, yeah, seriously, where I live, they can't. And then asset care has been a big one. We only, the team's been doing really good maintaining all the assets, especially with all the locates going on and maintenance. We only had one water main break, so we're doing good on that. And the big hot topic that's going to come up under project management is the Fed Center, the Horseshoe property. So we've been working a lot with Mandy JBA, going out there, walking the property and telling the engineering design company that, hey, these are all the things you have to do to understand how to tie into the system. So there's the big list right there. They have all of our procedures, all of our rules and regs, all of our standards. They need to know, we need to know we don't even know what they're going to build out there. So they need to do a flow and capacity study. And we need to know what they're going to do about the hazardous soil, about access egress out there. And also with all the easements, you know, there's a lot of history out there where it's going to be hard to tie into those sewer lines, as you well know. So it's all coming that way. And JVA is working with us also, since JVA has all the rules, regs, and documents. And the biggest thing is they have the flow and capacity information to understand what's going on with the sewer system and the water system in that area.
Could you remind us what the numbers are on that line? What's the percentage, Bill? The one that comes down Union?
Well, remember the water line, the sewer line is over capacity where it goes, where it ties from Union to Alameda Parkway. And that's part of the hotspot that C.M. Smith.
Yeah, okay.
But the water, this is important. I'll say this clearly so it picks up on the minutes. So we talked about this a lot. The pink zone runs consistently in July and August for drinking water. So that pump station runs consistently. So it's already over capacity based on 24-hour pumping of that pump station. So you have flow modeling for the sewer system that CDM Smith verified, where we have red dots showing it's over capacity. And then we have actual time run of pump stations during the summer months the pumps are running all the time. So this is a hot topic. This is, because that's by far the most biggest demand area because of the hotels and of the hospital. So it's a huge area in demand.
So this will need a separate engineering study, and I guess I think that was always understood, that we were going to need to ask for an engineering study for this. It's not just something that we're gonna be able to walk out and say. And while I appreciate JVA being able to step in and answer any initial questions, this is something that we need to engage somebody to do specifically, both water and wastewater. I did not realize that sounds like this is the time they are asking for that, so we need to find out who we will have do this development review. Is that what they're asking for?
Yeah, keep in mind that, if you look at the history of Green Mountain Water, all the data that's been generated, start off with McLaughlin, then Merrick, and then we downloaded all that data, terabits of data. Then we hired JVA last year that was approved to do the flow model for the sewer system. And so all those flow modeling data went to JVA. So if you pick another engineering company, then you have to ship a lot of that data that JVR already has to that engineering company. Then they have to study the rules and regs and put everything together. That's why JVA's been involved at this point, because they collected all this data and have done all the studies.
For the wastewater.
Well, yeah, plus they're looking at rules and regs they have the master plans for the water too.
Right.
Maybe this is a question for discussion later tonight, but I remember reading a lot of stuff the last time I was on the board about all the work that went into flow capacity and everything for bed center and the hospital. How did we not fix this problem at that time? Or was that before all of Adam Paul's increase in residents and businesses along the Union Corridor? Where were you then? It's telling us we were screwed up.
I was watching TV, the game was on.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean,
It was
we
theoretically.
shouldn't be playing catch up on this one, because that's in terms of likely development, that's part of the newest development here. I
Something.
remember you mentioned something about this
Well,
a while ago.
yeah. I don't know why it wasn't, but I think it was, when they did all that development, I don't think we had any idea of the volume that, or what they
Maybe
were
that's
going to
what-
allow to be built.
When they built that, they built a brand new concrete tank, a new transmission main down Second Avenue, a new pump station with 2 pumps, and ran a new sewer line from the hospital out to the district.
Yeah. That's what I remember reading. I guess we are where we are. Sorry, interrupted you.
Oh, no, that's exactly, if you look at the past board meeting minutes too, it was brought up last summer when our pink zone was over, running all the time. That's in the minutes. And we did, at that time, field supervisor did approach Merrick Engineering, and Merrick said, oh, we didn't think it would end up that way. So yes, you're right, the calculations, but now we have actual real-time data from the supervisory control and data analytics system, the control system, that show, hey, these pumps are running 24/7, so it's a slam dunk.
Yes, I just think this is, a problem that we ought to alert the city to. I've said this before, and I'll just say it again because it makes me so furious. Cities issue permits for properties and not even asking us if we can support it.
They asked, we signed.
We did.
We signed a certificate of availability. Yes, we did.
Not for the horseshoe property.
Yeah.
There's nothing signed.
Oh,
There's nothing.
we gave them that.
Yeah, there's nothing signed for the federal horseshoe. They have copies of the certificate, sewer and water availability. The newest ones. Have you seen the newest ones?
Yeah.
So
Okay, I'll shout.
But we will have to make, that review, that's comprehensive. But I will table that for now. Pending other circumstances. Okay,
Sorry, Jeff, you're up.
Yeah, so that's in the last slide is everything in operations running normal flow. For this type of weather, and the sewer system is running. Capacity in some areas, but that's normal for what we've been doing, so. No issues, the report in operations.
Are you having any issues with infiltration?
Not that we've seen too bad with the heavy rain. I know, we didn't have any backups. I know our neighboring district, Bancroft, had major infiltration that backed up into some basements and asked for help. So we haven't seen too much, but we get natural infiltration, nothing that's caused any manholes to pop up or any backflow sewer into any low areas.
any other comments? We'll move on to item 8, the capital and construction projects.
Yeah, so the slide has a little bullet points for the capital construction projects. So the Bear Creek CIP would have been done, but the contractor got pulled off to do some work for Thornton down on an emergency, but it should be done here in the next week. Kipping sewer line is complete. They just have to do some road work. So the contract for Levine's is Dylan has it, so we just have to have somebody sign off on it with respect. Engineering, sign off on at the end of the meeting if you want. The permit for the city of Lakewood is approved for the barricades, it's just not issued. And we're creating a construction RFP with RG Engineering, who is the improved process manager for the bid on the Atlantic water line. So we will work with them on their type of, working with Dylan through their type of contracting to contract that out. And then I emphasized the RG Engineering that, the bids would be reviewed by this board and awarded by this board. And then when the idea of the Tamarisk lift, we thought we had a good idea to increase the diameter of the size of the piping going into it to create more redundancy. We met Mandy, Lori, and Peter from JVA out there. They had a great idea to, once they looked at it, they said we could put in an inlet volt to for redundancy on that lift station that should be approved by the Colorado Department of Public Health and Environment too. And the spreadsheet for those projects are attached also.
So when officially will the exposition support be finished? So that we can ask them for payment?
Probably within a week, start paying.
So I saw that, and I was going to ask that in financial, but since you're asking about it, exposition is getting done. That is, and the whole Kipling project moved very quickly. So that is good, proves that we can do it. That was a complicated project. But it looks like we are expecting a full 250,000 from that developer, which means that we must have gone substantially over budget, because we did have some padding in there at a 50% rate, and then we added more. And if we met that rate, it was going to be 250. Do we have any idea of the costs or how that's going?
Yes, so the only thing they had to put in a manhole that was I think it was an extra $20,000, but we could give you the breakdown of the cost. I'll have to break down the cost once we get more of the spreadsheets coming in from Brandon Construction.
Okay.
But we should be pretty much on target for the project.
Okay. What's the status of HDR looking into funding?
They came back and did a detailed study with the state of Colorado for interest for giving loans based on the demographics in our area, and they said at this new study we did not match loan forgiveness, so we can't pursue loan forgiveness at this time. So that's That's all they do.
And I was expecting a memo on the Tamarisk.
Yeah, the memo changed once we walked through it a couple weeks ago. Because of we thought we could increase the diameter, but then once we saw we could put in a volt, now we gotta create a new memo. So Mandy will have to create, way to go, Mandy. Mandy will create a new memo.
Okay. When, can I ask, when was your last communication with the city regarding the Ravines barricades?
I forwarded that email to Dylan. Josh asked, hey, what's the status of? We can forward that email to you guys too. Josh asked City of Lakewood, hey, what's the status of the permits approved, but why isn't it issued? And they replied back, they're waiting for somebody to issue that permit. That's where it stood. It was probably 2 or 3 weeks ago.
Well, Dylan mentioned that in his correspondence.
Yeah, and I think you said before, I was making sure that was the one that Josh asked about before.
Did I
So,
pass the test?
What do you guys think about one of the board members presenting him or herself at the city permit office and asking for our permit? Since it's been approved.
Well, do they have, I don't know what their legal obligation is to provide, I mean, to me, once it's approved, I don't know why. To me, we should have had it virtually immediately.
I think we have to have it in order to post it so we can do the work.
Is that,
I don't know, honestly, what the response would be if you did that.
I don't know either, but I kind of like to find out.
Yeah,
I mean, you know, if the person behind the desk, I've done this before for my own permits. Where it takes forever and I find out it's been approved, but it's on somebody's desk somewhere. To get, you know, passed back to the people that do the work. And I just wouldn't mind going there and asking for the permit.
I say, please do.
When they say, no, well, it's in somebody's office, I said, well,
where's their?
where's the office? If I have to go walk into Adam Paul's office and say, where the hell's our permit? It's been approved. I don't mind doing that either. And what are they gonna do? Put me in handcuffs? I got a key.
I guess it depends how you're gay, but.
Well, I can be reasonably decent, I suppose.
we worth the try.
I know a lawyer to call.
I don't think he's a defense attorney.
No, not him. Yeah, I mean, I just, you know, I don't mind doing that if you guys,
No, if we need to make a motion to have you go down there, but I don't know, do we need to do that?
I don't know if that's necessary.
I'll go down tomorrow.
Thank you,
Yeah, I
good
mean,
idea.
if it's approved, you know, don't play politics with us, we're not political. We serve people in the district, that's all we're doing.
Sounds good. All right, anything else on general construction sheet? All right, next up is the engineering proposal from JVA. Or would you like to join us?
Great, thank you. Hi, I'm Mandy Rasmussen, Senior Project Manager with JVA. Been working with Jeff, Sam, and Josh, meeting weekly for development reviews and different capital projects that we can help with as they come up. So one that came up recently from you all is a financial plan. And basically the engineering components that support that. So you all worked with Reptelis a few years ago on a rate study. And then I understand Karen has been coordinating with Todd Cristiano at Reptelis. And so there's 2 options, and that's what I want to talk through here is either the district works directly with Reptelis, they do the financial plan, and we'd be happy to support with the engineering estimates. But I wanted to talk through, there is flexibility in that of how Reptelis and JVA can work together. We've supported other municipalities and districts in similar ways. Because you can imagine there's an engineering component of coming up with the cost estimates for those projects and when they would be needed over the next 10 years. And then Raftellus does a financial modeling of how that turns into the financial plan. So wanted to be available to help talk that through and see how best we and Raftellus can support the district. So I believe, and I was hoping Todd got that proposal to you a little, or I think it was just yesterday.
Todd did give me a proposal yesterday. I had no idea what you were going to be saying though. So this is all kind of new.
Yes.
So, which is kind of not preferred. Tell me what, what's going on here. I'm also wondering what this process is.
Yes.
Mr. Tias, this is your recommendation as manager that you brought in this proposal?
Well, think about this.
Yeah.
So JVA is reviewing all of our new development. And so they have all this data they have to review. So they do the flow study, they do all this data, and then they review our rules and regs. And so we meet with them every Tuesday to review all the present projects that are going on to make sure everything's within rules and regs. And then we mentioned that, hey, we have to put together a financial plan, a 10-year plan. And everybody knows that Raftellus is the go-to organization for rate studies and plans. And I know Green Mountain Water used them in 2021 to do a study on system development fees. That didn't work out. So I thought, well, JVA, Mandy spoke up and said, hey, we work with Raftellus all the time. And I know you were talking directly, Director Morgan was talking directly with Todd Cristiano from Raftellus. So I thought, well, I told Mandy, I said, well, Director Morgan's talking directly with Raftellus, so maybe you could talk to the board, the 5-member board, and say, hey, this is what JVA has to offer too. That way all the board members could hear.
So would it be in lieu of Raftellus
No.
or in support of?
In support of.
Okay.
So
So
anticipating the amount of work that Raftellus will be asking you questions of in support of this plan.
correct. And to make it a better product for the district is helping determine those, O&M costs versus capital projects and what's growth related and what's regular maintenance required, working. Raftellus does dollars and cents, and we can help make those determinations.
Flow capacity is a big one.
Last time, didn't we have Merrick providing that data to Raftellus?
Yes,
So it will be consistent. We have someone provide that support to Raftellus. I think that makes sense.
yes, kind of. I'm gonna table this to think about.
Oh, yeah.
We're not gonna bring in, since like you said, I got that proposal yesterday, but we had so much else on the agenda that I didn't bring it forward
And
today.
maybe we had the wrong item on the agenda. It's no proposal, it's more, I'm here for information to support. So if JVA could provide a proposal of how we would support Raftellus,
Here,
that could be the next step.
okay, yeah, and I see, I think there is some
Yeah.
probably miscommunications. Here's where I'm at. What I asked for what I need is a financial plan. Well, that's what we are missing for the capital. So maybe we can continue talking. What I am looking for, what I think the district needs is a comprehensive capital plan.
Yeah.
We have a 10-year capital improvement
Yes.
plan.
Yeah. The FCA.
No,
Okay.
we just finished it. Well, it's been a year, it's been while I was on, Nina. Big one, do I have the names right? Our previous manager at the temp. So we have a 10-year
Okay.
capital improvement plan. We have an infrastructure replacement plan. What when you got this master plan, as my understanding, what I did was ask for the integration of all of these other things
Mhm.
together.
For the sewer model,
No, because the projects are kind of identical
right,
in all of these other pieces. What we need is somebody to pull together the engineering,
Mhm.
the master plans, the field works. And say, we can only budget so many, how are we gonna do that?
right,
So it was less of an engineering thing, because a lot of that has been targeted. Now, I saw on your, the piece that you just did, you were kind of reformatting it into that FICA plan
Yes.
format from Director Baker.
Mhm.
And finding, my understanding, you have been working on finding the lifespans, and that
Yes,
took a long time.
yes,
Were you provided the lifespans that we currently have on file through the asset management plan?
yes,
Okay, so did they change?
yes,
Okay, yes, and you're nodding, Sam had something to do with this,
yes.
he went and made them older. Okay, okay. Okay.
Now, are these standard guidelines or are they literally based on true function?
Well, so the FCA, that's more of the, what do you anticipate needing to spend each year to keep up with the replacement of the infrastructure you have? So that's something you'll do, whether there's growth or new developments or
Right.
whatever. And so that FCA document helps you decide how much you need to replace each year. An engineer would say, based on today's cost, this would be the cost for the O&M. What Raftellus does is they take the O&M, debt service for any loans you need to take out for larger capital projects, and then those other capital projects that you're able to do each year. And, you know, I understand you have.
So
have a
that's
plan.
more of a debt structure than necessarily, like, say, if something will last for 50 years.
Yeah,
It's not really, it's more of how we would structure the debt to fix things over, say, the next 10
Yes.
years, not really that, oh, here's our 50-year plan to replace this.
correct. Or make sure there's enough dollars coming in so that in 50 years you can replace that thing that you're
Correct,
expecting
right.
to
So
last 50 years.
It's, as we've said before, you're looking at that $20 million and you're looking at O&M and you're looking at capital projects and you wonder what happened to your 20 million, it's not there anymore.
Right.
And
Yeah, we need 80 million.
we've deferred this for so long, it's just gonna bite us in the rear, no question, so.
And my only purpose being here is that, you know, continue on and contract directly with Raftellus. You'll have a successful project. We can continue working with Jeff the next couple weeks, and the rest just to support them if they need to get the information to Raftellus as needed. So we continue that way. When Jeff and I were talking, you know, if we wanted to make it simpler, you already have us as an on-call engineer. We could have Raftellus as a sub-consultant to us and have it go that way, but that's my purpose here, is just showing that flexibility and willingness to support. So you have the right information going into the financial plan for those capital numbers.
Okay, all right, thank you. Let me digest. At the time that I proposed working with Raftellus, I said I would bring back a proposal for the rest of the board. Is anybody else? So I anticipate calling Mandy again and calling Raftellus again and bringing back a proposal. Does anybody else want to join me in discussing that and bringing something to the board? Anybody? You?
I like economics.
All right, so
You're even good at it.
I get carried away, but.
I believe that's an official subcommittee then that we would have to do.
Yeah, official is kind of a weaselly word.
Okay. Do I need to make-
Want a committee,
I don't,
or do you want to just do it together?
I just want to do it together.
That's fine.
Do it.
Okay, good. All right, we will talk about that later.
Ask you a question, does this go back to your October, November work last year, of racking and stacking our capital
Yes.
improvements? That we still don't have? Or should I just wait a while?
Well, Yeah,
Yes.
yes, that
Yes, is a
comes
good-
back to, yeah. Sounds like things are in progress.
Okay, good.
So we'll continue on that. Very good. Thank you for
All right,
talking to us.
Thank you.
thank you, thank you.
Just so you know, some of us feel like we should have been here a long time ago. So if we're pushing, it's because we do feel that pressure.
Yeah, no, I
And you're
understand.
looking at us, going, why didn't you do this before? We feel the same way.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mandy.
All right. Where are we at? We are at, let's see. We are at
Yeah.
eight C, risk management.
I asked last meeting that we put this on the agenda for this time, and because our agenda is so full, I'll just say about 30 seconds worth of stuff. Every large organization I've ever been involved in, including particularly Airbus, gave me a lot of insight into risk management, and I'm kind of shocked that we don't see risk management reports from our projects that are ongoing. It's kind of shocking that we don't. There's a lot of things you can learn from that. It's kind of standard industry practice. So just ask you to take a look at it. We can talk about it later. You can send me an email at home and tell me I'm full of crap. I won't be offended. I just think it's a way to avoid some things we've encountered.
Could you give just in your one quick example?
Yeah, sure. I'll give you two. There's a company that was engaged with the city in conversations about a project that we all care deeply about. I'm not going to mention the company or
Okay.
anything. If we'd had a risk management summary once a month, we could have seen that the things we were expected to have happen in process didn't happen.
Right.
You can also look at exposition. You can look at the delay by Excel. If we'd had risk management analysis, we would have found out that Excel is 30% behind all the time. And we could have factored that in. We're lucky that the people, the builders who were on the other end of exposition were further behind than Excel was. And so they weren't pressuring us. But every time we get in one of these positions where we have to stop work or we have to wait for somebody, it makes us look bad. Public wonders what the hell we're doing here. And I don't blame them. I'd wonder too, in the absence of any information. But it also allows that we could have exerted some pressure from the board on Excel to get them to move quicker. We didn't exert any pressure. I'm sure that that engineering company didn't exert any pressure on Excel, so it just happened at its natural pace. Good news is we already pay for some risk management service from the insurance pool. As part of our membership in SDA. I didn't know about it until Friday, and Dylan and I were at the SDA board member.
Can you flesh that out a little bit? What is that?
There's a risk management component of SDA. It's part of the risk, it's part of the insurance pool. Because the insurance guys recognize you do risk management, they're gonna have less engagement with us and like if you were bills, but that's the whole idea is it saves money and time and maintains in many cases our professional reputation. The stuff I've given you is not my work. It's Meyer Corporation in Boston. And they are by far the very best in the business of this. We'd be, I think, kind of foolish not to take a look at the opportunity. And maybe once a month we'd look at. Basically, it's a quad chart showing what's low risk, what's high risk, and what is new information that's happened since the last meeting. And it's a way of, another way of getting information on empirical information, real data, other than just slides on the screen that says this is moving along okay, or this is kind of slower, this is not, good, or this is great. It's a different way of looking at it, and it's a way that you can take action. And it permits the people that are responsible to continue doing the work. And it permits the people who are responsible for due diligence and oversight to do their job.
Okay, quick question. From my previous experience, it was risk management was more of a almost one-time sort of thing. It's like, you got a problem, you need to get it fixed. Like, okay, but you're kind of talking about monthly, and I'm kind of, is that project management? Is like, what's the?
It's almost indistinguishable from project management, but
Okay.
it focuses on guessing based on experience. What are the potential problem areas? Are they low, medium, or high risk? And do we need an action plan for addressing them if it should happen? So that you don't spend 6 months trying to figure out what to do once you discover you have a problem with red tank.
Yeah, but you are seeing it as a kind of continuing.
It's a continuing thing, and it's a standard practice in major organizations. I mean, at Airbus, we had, I don't know, 6,000 people doing risk management, but we were doing it down to the, rubber on the tire level. How, at what point does rubber separate from tire based on how over speed you land? I'm not suggesting we have to spend any money on anything. I just want to present it to you guys as here's something we don't do. Jeff, confirm for me, right, that we don't have any requirement in any of our contracts for a risk management module. Or
That is correct. So as we move through these contracts, for example, the respect contract right there for that is there's not a section in there for risk management, like, let's say okay, we're gonna, go to the city of Lakewood, and city of Lakewood's not gonna give us a permit.
well, now we'd be able to assess that risk. That would be a risk thing. We
Use an example of the city. What I remember with the city is that they have to hire a guy. And then every once in a while, he'd come in and say, oh my God, you got a potential problem here. You need to make new laws or, whatever. It's a risk you need to avoid.
We have so few projects. We talk about this big list, but we have so few projects that it doesn't take
Yeah, so it's kind of like my first thought is like, risk management should be part of all management.
But it's not formalized here, and there's no requirement for JVA to do any risk management in anything that you do for us. But if we put it in your contract, you wouldn't be surprised, would you? Because you see it all the time. And you probably do it for everything you do. You just don't share it with anybody unless they ask for it.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah. And we're maybe a little more sensitive to some things based on being beaten up a lot here. And I'm just throwing it out there. I'm sorry, I way over my 30 seconds, but I'll try to answer your question. Did I? Okay. Well, I've got some more examples, but I don't want to do them in public just yet.
So action item on this is, you're suggesting later,
I'll,
look at,
we got too much stuff on our plate for the next meeting to.
Okay.
This isn't gonna go anywhere.
it's not, and unfortunately, this is like, as you said, kind of a step beyond the project management, and we don't have project management milestones to be able
We
to.
don't even have a project management software here, do we?
No.
Yes.
Excellent. Well, thank you for letting us know that we are at risk of not having a risk assessment. We will move on to
Okay.
financial matters.
So I reviewed the May, June, the monthly operating expenses, capital expenditure, the amount of financial investment reports. And I move that we accept them.
A second. Any discussion?
Is this a good time for me to talk about tap fee accounting?
No.
Okay, good.
We can after that.
Okay.
That might be more to come down to the auditor, like, after seeing her. Like the review points, I mean, I think there's some things we're gonna need to change anyway, which I think that would be a better time for that discussion myself, but.
Okay, I didn't want to step on your toes.
No,
later.
you're not. I'm just saying, I just think this can just stay with this and that can be part of the other discussion.
Yeah, I could go either way with it. So, thanks.
Thank you. Anything else? Okay. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
That's 4.
Okay, what did we just vote on?
To accept the.
Oh, for the financial, okay. I'm still back on risk management. Okay, yes, I'm in favor of the financial statements.
Unanimously passed them.
Yes.
And that was for the financials and the expenditures, correct?
Yes.
Yes. All right, so we are on to the presentation of the audit. I can ask you to come on, please. And I apologize, if I would have thought about it, I would have moved you to the beginning, so you didn't have to wait. Thank you for your patience.
That's fine. I'm Debbie Crady. I'm a partner with Crady Pursuant Associates. We've been doing the audit of Green Mountain. I think this is our 3rd year now. So just wanted to take a little bit to go through some things, also go over the tap fee information that I was provided today when I walked in the room. So something we were unaware of. So we'll start with just our general letter. So we probably have 3 documents from us. One's a management letter comment, one's just a communication letter, and the audit report itself. So we'll just start with the general letter. The one thing we always want to remind everyone is, although we assist with the preparation of the financial statements, they're your financial statements, and you're responsible for the selection and use of appropriate accounting policies. No new policies were adopted in the current year. The lease standard was effective this year. The leases you have with the district are nominal, and so therefore don't fall from the standard. So we were able to not have to do that. But if you were ever to enter into a large lease agreement, we could have a liability associated with that. A lot of it has to do with our water districts. They own everything, right? It's not, they're not renting buildings and not renting stuff. So, we haven't seen a lot of that.
What's an example of something released?
A big piece of equipment, maybe. If you were, instead of purchasing a large piece of equipment, you were going to lease a piece of equipment over 5 years.
Do we have any leased equipment?
No,
Oh, okay.
you own everything. That's what I was gonna say. Right now, you don't have anything.
Okay,
That
I didn't
falls.
think it was relevant to it.
Yeah, for now, it's not relevant. I'm just saying that's something that if you were to in the future, the old standards were, if you rented a building, you would just show that you had a building rental in your financial statements in the footnotes, there would be no liability. Now, if you were to rent a building, the liability goes up on your books and an asset, and it's amortized over the life of the project. So that's the new thing that happened this year. Didn't affect you. Just thought I'd throw that out there in case something were to come down the pipe at some point. But it seems like most water districts, that's not really how they're operated. It's not really an issue. As far as estimates, the significant estimates in your financial statements would be depreciation expense and also the pension and OPEB calculations. Those are all actuarial determined. They're part of the para plan. And so that information is all obviously an estimate. We do rely on the actuary for determining that estimate. We do review the depreciation, make sure it looks useful and the useful lives are reasonable and that they're doing correct calculations. The most sensitive disclosure in your financial statements for us would be all the pension disclosures. And it goes from page 14 to page 32, talks about the pension plan and the OPEB plan. That's all required. Most of that information comes straight from the actuary provided by para. So we basically just take that information and put it in here. It's a lot of information, but it's required. But so we consider that pretty sensitive because it's such a large portion of the audit. The financial statement disclosures are neutral, consistent, and clear. We didn't have any difficulties in dealing with management and performing our audit. They're always very great. He's very responsive and super helpful during that process. As far as the statements are concerned, we did have a past adjustment, which we'll go over. And then we did have this year, while we were having discussions with Doug, the endpoint project, which had been going on for several years, he put it into service this year. And during our discussions, we determined that some of that project should have been put in service throughout the period. Because as soon as those endpoints got installed, they went live. And they really were in service. And that was just, I think, a miscommunication on him understanding kind of what that meant and us understanding how the project worked. So we did evaluate that. We've corrected it in the current year. So everything is depreciated and we were able to run it through the current year because it wasn't what we considered material enough to have to restate prior statements. So you'll see a significant depreciation expense is a lot higher this year. And that's why. So we basically caught the depreciation up, capital assets are correct. There was a prepaid piece of service that he depreciated in the year of the actual prepayment. That's been amortized over 10 years, the life of the endpoints. We used kind of a weighted average type process because the import project also had different prices throughout this, 5-year period or whatever it's been going on. So I feel comfortable that now it's on process, and then Doug and I have had the conversation that, as soon as something goes into service is what we need to move from construction in progress into capital and start depreciating those assets. I mean, I think it was hard because they were expecting that project, I think, to also be a much shorter period of time than what happened, right? With COVID and parts, and I think it just drug on and drug on. So that was the biggest entry that we had. The other entries weren't as significant.
None of those create any Tabor issues for us now or in
No,
the future.
Tabor's really based on the revenue. I mean, they say expenses, but if you read the way it is, it's really a revenue calculation.
So, well, are you
Well,
done?
and you also don't, you take the stance that you're exempt from Tabor as a water enterprise. So that's the districts, and we note that in the footnotes. I have water districts that do it very different ways. And we leave that up to the legal department, because lawyer I am not.
So the items of recommendations.
Yeah,
Here.
I can go over those.
Okay.
I mean, I'll go over those, but if you wanna,
Well, no, I was just gonna ask if, what I didn't know was our policies here. If they were items that once you've gone over the Doug, they become implemented, like whether it's the month end being the actual month end rather than the bank statement.
yeah, that was, I think
Or,
it's working.
How we're working like prepaids, et cetera. Cause I thought like this is kind of under a modified accrual, right? Or is it truly? accrual?
You're accrual because you're a water district, so your financials are complete accrual, unlike. Let's say a town,
Right.
town would have two sets, right? You have the complete accrual on a fund basis, but you guys are on a full accrual.
Okay, and so my simple question, I guess, even for yours, so are these our own? Should these already be part of our policies?
Well, so when we do the audit, we always take the stance that we want to bring up things that we think can help improve processes, right?
All right, well, and I
It's
want
not like-
consistency.
Right, it's not like I would feel that your systems are inadequate or
Right.
that there's not, good internal control.
Well, no, but like say the EFT payments. I mean, that where, and I don't even know the dollar amount that goes along with that. So what I didn't know that, but, it makes sense to me that it all should be approved.
Right, and I think what happens is sometimes it's just oversight, right? The board sees all this information and, they're signing stuff and that kind of stuff, but then there's these little things and then we're like, oh, well, there's really not a control over this EFT process.
Right.
Maybe we
Probably
should
if
have.
there's just, these were legacy policies, and when EFT came along, the board didn't act to create a new one.
Well, I don't know about that because they always would have been checked before the EFT. So they would have,
That's the
they
problem.
would have come through here, but once it switched to EFT, that was where it got subverted.
Which I see that in other districts and when I'm doing the accounting for as well, like that's a process that even getting the board used to that was kind of a process. I'm like, no,
Yeah.
I know this credit card statement gets paid direct, right? So we don't have fees ever, but you still need to sign off on it. I still want you to look at it each month. So it's just,
Right.
but I think that's the thing is as electronic processes became more and more implemented, that process wasn't thought. So that's the thing is when we're going through an audit, one year we might think about something else and this year we saw that. So we always try to bring up things. The first year, we always went for the biggest items, right? The things that we thought were most crucial, and then we kind of add little things each year.
Yeah, so I was just trying to figure out if these are things that once noted are implemented, like,
Doug has been very good about.
well, I understand that. I'm just saying,
implementing
do
quickly.
we have to incorporate them into anything? Are they technically out there in the standards?
They're all.
Do you know what I'm saying? Right.
Yeah, so it's however you want. There's no set of rules out there,
Okay,
but internally you might have. a
Right.
policy.
well, that's what I didn't know if we needed to make them a policy.
I don't know if you have to have a formal policy per se, or it's just more of an informal policy.
Right.
Yeah, I think probably, the bigger concern is someday Doug will be gone. So,
Right, and you want the next person, right, that comes in that's gonna adhere.
right, and you don't, as my understanding is that you do not have formal written policies governing these topics.
There's some.
Well, see, and that's what I
policies
was, I guess, asking,
I
do we need to
think-
be implementing
yeah.
something of that nature, even simplistic ones?
I think probably that's at the gov level rather than the board level,
Okay,
right, like write down your processes.
And he does actually provide us with documentation on his processes, and they do have some like payroll documentation, and he has some that I've provided each year.
Okay,
So there are definitely policies out there. How, at this point, I can't remember, it's been a while.
well,
since
I mean, if they,
how formal
technically, they don't have to
are,
be formal, but I'm just saying if they're updated with items that we know, just so that exactly what Dylan's saying, you know, if Doug gets hit by a bus tomorrow and
Yeah, when
And
Doug
all
took
things,
over
yeah.
from Kathy, he had all the policies documented, Doug did it, so Doug will just update them.
Yeah, he's
So
pretty good
there's
about that.
standard operating procedures that Doug had to learn too, so.
okay,
Yeah, so, and we talked through, we did talk about these, and I know, like, during that, and I talked to him about the prepaids, and he
Right.
was like, oh, I said, you know, you could do a threshold, and you don't need to, like, if you have a prepaid item that's $1,200, is that worth keeping track of? Probably not, right? But if it's 20,000, maybe that's your question, you know, for the size of the organization is relatively large, so you don't need to track every tiny item, but, you know, creating a policy that he's comfortable with, and whoever's comfortable with, and sticking that, and he was talking about developing those processes.
Maybe just respecting his role, we just ask him to let us know when he's finished updating the policies to reflect this. Then we don't get into his wheelhouse.
Layman question about
Yeah.
the depreciation. Decades ago, when I was an auditor for the government, we were auditing commercial companies. They're trying to make money. And so the part of their theory was they wanted to depreciate everything as fast as they could, et cetera, et cetera. Well, we're not a commercial company trying to make money. So I'm kind of wondering, since we're not trying to reduce our taxes and stuff like that, how does our depreciation relate to our kind of reserve studies where we're looking like 90-year life?
So the policy, it's all straight line depreciation, right? So that means the same amount each year based on the life of the asset. And it should be based on what you think the useful life of the asset was when it was placed into service.
Like 90 years?
40, most of them are at 40. And what we found though is like, so in like original installation of, let's say, pipes, they're 40 years. And then you do a CIPP lining right in it to extend the life. Then we put that on the books for that 50 years. In some instances, I've had organizations go back through and say, okay, we've changed our life and now we know this is going to last longer, and you can actually, it's painful, but you can then say, okay, we estimate this was a 40-year life. We're 20 years in and we know now it's a 60-year life. So we're going to change our life to 40 years, right? Because we have 40 more years left. Those kind of things can happen, but it's normally just, it's an estimate. That's why we talk about estimates, right? It's an estimate. It's your best guess of how long do I think this is going to last? Because as everybody will tell you, you don't know for sure, right? It's not a crystal ball.
to me, depreciation is a non-cash item.
It
I
is.
mean, it really, so.
Yeah.
So we really need to understand the cash and where we get cash to fund things, not so much the depreciation. We need to make sure that we have the ability to pay for things and to create, you know, the funds, the backup funds, because depreciation is great and all from like tax and book purposes, but since it's not a cash item, cash is kind of king. And so it's
Well,
not to be, it's almost moot, not to be mean about it,
No,
but it kind of is.
Well, that's why I have
disagree.
to, that's why I have to switch thinking.
Yeah.
Because like I said, I was coming from the world, we're trying to make the depreciation as high as possible to make money.
Yeah,
Right.
if we try to make the depreciation line as long as possible, we'll be missing the expectation that next year we'll have to replace more pipe than we did the year before because the pipe is older. And that cycle would continue. So if you're going out to 90 years, I think you almost want to be right on the money for what you think the real life is.
Sure.
Not the hoped economic life.
And it is difficult because so on your statements, you'll see that you also do your budget, right? Which is actually on a full accrual basis. The budget is on a modified accrual basis. So you budget for capital expenditures, you don't budget for depreciation. So that's closer to cash flows. So that's closer to what you're concerned with,
Right, yeah.
And that's what you process.
Cash flow is, yeah, to me way bigger than.
Right, so that's the thing, and so I think when you look at that statement, the budget to actual variance there, you can say, okay, we budgeted for all this, here's
Right.
what we actually did in capital outlay, this is more relative, the statement of cash flows also kind of shows you where your money's coming from, when you're turning money over into investments, or did you make money on your operations? So those things are more cash basis flow stuff than the actual financial statements. And like you said, that in a general business, it's a totally different mindset and, you know, necessity. Here's just, you know, I would say your budget, you know, when you're on the board, you're probably more concerned with are my capital projects in line? Did I spend enough? Do we have enough in reserves for that? Like you said, then it is depreciation. So that's not gonna come out of your bank account. That's already come out of your bank account. You paid for that a long time ago. So that's just, you know, getting it off your books. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, that's good. That's-
Okay. But I will go through the management letter and comments.
That's fine. I'm sorry,
No, you're fine.
I'm pushing ahead.
And there's only a couple more things I need to point out, that we didn't have any disagreements with management on accounting, reporting, or auditing standards. We will request a management representation letter at the end of the audit. To the best of our knowledge, management did not consult with other accountants for a second opinion on anything. And the other matter section is for the MD&A management discussion analysis that is prepared by management. So we just review that. We don't audit to that. And then we also, the budgetary schedules are in relation to the financial statement. So that's just kind of an overview of the stuff I have to kind of say here. And then we did have one, let's see, what did we do? Sorry, we had two past adjustments. One was just, it's all the capital stuff that we discussed. The prepaids and the capital expenditures, and so we were able to feel comfortable, the management was comfortable that didn't need to be a prior period adjustment. And then as far as the management letter is concerned, like we kind of went over, these are just processes we think that could improve. I mean,
Thank you for that. Very
you know,
useful.
so we can go through them real quick. Let's see. For the enhanced procedures over capital assets, this has been there for a while and it's kind of a difficult process, but to remember that when you replace all those old lines, you really should be taking those old lines off.
Yeah.
They're fully depreciated, so kind of just,
You're just removing them from the balance sheet,
yes,
because they're no longer an asset.
yeah.
They don't
And
even
right-
exist technically.
Yeah, so just making sure that process happens. Sometimes it's really difficult, right? When it's just sections of lines and how does that work? But trying to get a process in place to make sure that's happening. As far as new comments, this was I think it's just an unusual thing that happened this year. Sometimes banks will cut off on like the 28th instead of, because it's the last business day of the month instead of the 30th of the month or 31st or whatever. And what happened is they did the bank reconciliation as the date of the bank statement. And we always recommend in that case, just do it as of the end of the year. There was a couple items out there that we just had to add to reconciliation. So just to be aware of that process. And that's just, doesn't happen very often, but every now and then. they come. So any questions on that? And then the EFT we talked about, just getting that approved as part of kind of, goes with the checks, just have the EFTs in there and someone approves those as well. And then prepaid expenses we talked about, and really, we kind of talked about it all, and the capitalization stuff. So, but in the past, Doug's been really good about implementing our processes and getting those in, and I'm always available if he has questions on how to do something or what we can do to help them. That's what we can do for him. And then, any questions on any of that so far? And then this was brought to my attention today about the tap fees and impact fees basically being restricted. We weren't apprised to this, I guess. So I guess,
Nobody was.
So-
In fairness, I only found out about this on Friday
okay,
at this SDA seminar I attended, and all of a sudden hit me in the face like a brick. Like,
and I
wait.
don't know. I'm not familiar with the agreement, so I guess maybe that's the lawyer looking at the agreements back then. I know I've had this in other governments.
Do you want to, does it,
The
do
tap.
we know what you're talking
Yeah,
about?
sorry, the tap fees possibly being restricted and not, so I guess understanding that.
Yeah, I saw that same thing when I started, and I did ask about that. I know, Doug knows about this.
Okay.
And he's got separate written account. I was concerned about it being, physical counts. They had checked about that at that time.
Okay.
So what you are saying is it needs to be, physically different and transparently different. And it is kind of, you can see it in our budget, but our budget that's about where, that's the financials that we put out. So they were aware. and if I didn't talk to you about it, then I must have talked to, the previous manager again about that, the interim. Because I got two separate sources, that was okay to keep it not physically, not two different accounts, but they are accounting for it, okay, separately.
I would say on the audit report, we would show those as restricted cash though. So I would change this draft and pull out that piece. And at least, or somewhere document that those monies are restricted for tap fees. I mean, that should be part of the document, the audit document, if they haven't been spent. I mean, I don't know if they're spending them, that could be the case as well. So I don't, I guess.
They are
that-
spending them on capital expenses.
Yeah.
So that is our whole separate capital things, and Doug could explain it better than me, but there is a separate piece of accounting for that.
So that, I guess when we act for restricted cash, maybe that wasn't understood in the process.
Yeah.
So I think when, I'll just touch base with Doug and kind of see what
Yeah,
that looks
is
like.
this
from my
worth
perspective.
looking at from your perspective?
I don't think, I mean, if we already have a separate account, I mean, the only thing, I guess, is our account interest bearing or is it a non-interest? I mean, this is like
Off the
pretty,
top of my head.
This is an opportunity to get where you wanted to be, to make money on money.
I would
well,
assume
this is,
They're all,
They're all in that.
it's all in the same cash count that we're getting, so that's why he says it's all in that one. Okay.
right, and this is just saying it needs to be clearly designated, so it's almost, and I mean, this is probably not a true analogy, it's kind of like an escrow account. So it goes in and there's, the Dave part and the Karen part and the Dave and the Roger, there's these components. But then they get paid for this, and so it's like having a designation on that portion of the money. And just knowing, to me, that then it gets paid against those expenditures.
And Doug does do that designation, but it's not
The,
what you're saying.
the really interesting part of this is the legislative history of it. I mean, the expectation is of the Senate was that Colorado Senate would be that we publish this on the website, so it'd be clearly obvious to the people that paid the tap fees as well as district residents, how we were stewards of that money and using it only for that purpose. So,
I expect in actual practice that the publication of the budget serves that function.
yeah, but
in
you'd have to be a
strict
genius to figure out that that's what's in there.
Yes.
Well, but I would say most people, I don't know how many actually, I mean, they might look at some of the monthly stuff. I don't know how many of them truly peruse the financial statements on a regular basis.
Yeah, I don't either,
But,
but we sort of have an obligation to try to meet the.
oh, no, I mean, this is pretty clear what it's saying.
Yeah.
But
I think
I
it's
would,
pretty easy to do too, so why not,
right.
why not?
Well, yeah, and it sounds like we probably are most likely doing it.
Mhm. Can we be more obvious about how we do it?
Well, and that's what I don't know, because I've not seen, I mean, I don't know how it shows. I guess without probably seeing like a trial balance. I don't know if it shows, like I said, the Dave fund, the Dylan fund. I mean, I don't know how
It
it's,
must be in an Excel spreadsheet. It's definitely not in the accounting. records.
okay, so maybe it is. And then,
Yeah.
if that's the case, but it's something we have to publish.
We just pull
I don't
that
know,
out,
then do
publish
you
it.
do that or do you make it a note?
I was gonna say, I mean, we'll be adding a footnote to the audit report. So I mean, if you publish your audit report on there, that might fulfill that as well.
That would, yeah.
I'm just
I
throwing
just
that
want
out
to make
there.
sure we're legal.
Like I said, I haven't looked into it specifically, but I think based on the other districts that I represent, and the way they handle tap fees, you are not abnormal. So I would say that.
Yeah.
From
This is what we.
It's kind of you to say.
well, yeah, well, from a, strict reading of the statute and complying to the best of a layman's interpretation, probably not. From a actual, the way it's done approach, I think you're fine. And I would rather you do it the way it's done.
I highly doubt that we're knowingly misrepresenting. You know what I'm saying? I mean, it's not like if someone were to come in, we could show them. It's.
I'm just thinking of something we might probably ought to talk about in the executive session related to this.
I don't think it's that important.
It'll get in without litigation.
Good.
I assume it's not a big deal, but just make sure I'm asking. A lot of organizations will have like reserves. And it's like, if we just say reserves, are we fine? my question, I think I know the answer is, we don't have to somehow say that this tap fee is for this project, this tap fee is for this one. And it's just a
Do
big,
you?
Yes, that's what it says.
It says you have to have it for a capital improvement project. So as long as
Just as
it's
as long as it's a capital improvement project,
well,
It's
It's
not
almost like it's a
necessarily
restricted account, so it can only be paid for those.
but it can be any capital project, correct?
That's my understanding.
That's my
The way it is
understanding
treated
on
is.
your
Well, that's
As
my-
long as you are using it for capital improvement projects as a category of expense, rather than this tap fee is for this particular, and this is what I'm saying about a strict reading of the statute as compared to actual practice.
yeah, that's my question.
Does it have to be for capital growth only, or can it be maintenance as well, capital maintenance?
I don't think it can be for maintenance.
It's be-
I think it
capital
needs to be for-
That's what I was thinking, because they don't
That's
impact
tied in,
fees.
exactly, it's tied into the definition of system development fees.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's a broad category reserves or something like that.
Right, so when you're putting tap fees in, right, and the chance of that could be, I can't imagine that the tap fees cover everything it costs you to
Right.
put in the new line.
It does.
Right, so my thought is,
That's our
how
whole,
much could
that's our
really
whole
be,
dilemma.
how much really could be left over, I guess would be my question too.
I remember with Reptelis, we were discussing how to increase the tap fees and some of the higher tap fees legitimately support given the Reptelis study. What I'm trying to do is make sure we indemnify ourselves against using this as another tool to attack us for our.
Is that like risk management?
Yes, it is.
Just curious.
It is, sorry. Real good. I think we've exhausted that.
Yeah, so I guess from my perspective, I'll get with Doug and see what we need to add from a footnote perspective.
So we're defensible, when the law says user-friendly format information for the website, that's what I'm concerned about, is.
They also say financial statements are supposed to be user friendly, so and this is what you
I'm
get.
just saying, a lot of the stuff, I don't think the people, probably the general public has some overall understanding, but I doubt they have the actual understanding to get into the minute details of the financials. But if they want, they're more than welcome. I mean, they're open, it's open records here. So they're welcome to come and look.
I have guys like Dave auditing my budget every year, so I'm sensitive to when they put this language in front of me, they said, well, why didn't you comply?
Well, I like the idea of earning the interest, but like I said, I highly doubt we're misrepresenting anything, and
No, I
so.
don't think we are either. I just want to make sure we got it.
All right.
Okay.
Anything else?
Just overall, I mean, it's a clean opinion, which is obviously what you want. And then I didn't know if you had any specific questions. I mean, they're your financial
yes.
statements, so, you know,
I got you my update today.
yes, I got it. Thank you. Yeah. So there's no questions on the financials.
Thank you.
No, looks good. Okay, thank you for coming.
Thank you.
For being here in person and waiting and all of the wonderful work.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming out this way.
Promise that's the last thing. to throw. Okay, tonight. Yeah, almost.
All right, do we have an account authorization update?
Yeah, it's right here. Yeah,
So
so,
who are we adding? Oh, do I need to resign?
yeah. We need to add somebody.
So who else would like to sign? Gonna be a signer, Roger?
Sure.
Do we need to do that as a motion? I'll make a motion that we add Roger Wendell as a signer on the C-Safe.
Second.
Second by Director Garner. Thank you. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Stay.
Unanimous, abstained by Director Quinn. Thank you.
Can I use your pen? Of course. So if you just want to like your name, just put board of director, Circle Limited, probably just like me.
The C-Safe, is that an acronym for something?
It's like a Colorado Safe. It's for public government entities, it's like the safe place to put your investments that
Yeah,
meet all
but
the.
it's not an
safety
acronym, where S stands for this and A stands for this.
I don't think so. It's just Colorado safe for public entities or government entities to say that we're not in any high risk investments is essentially what it
It
is.
already says safe. How many times do you need to say it?
Well, I'm looking for an acronym.
It's up
It's
to 5% return.
Students, Americans, Financial Education.
There probably is something that was in the original legislation, nobody remembers it.
Good point, Mr. Tyus. Before we left, I had a note about that too. That was a good analysis on the investment level. Did anybody else see that, the interests?
Now, what about the bank account? Do we need new signers or, I mean, who all is able to sign here besides me?
I was, unless they,
Yeah, we could add.
that changed, but I should
No,
be
it's
on
fine.
there.
Yeah, but come on. We could add more too. I'll make a note that.
Probably the vice president should be added as a third signatory in the event of a board absence.
Okay.
Or because you have two signatory requirement, certain threshold.
Two have to sign at the same time?
Well,
Or
they
just
need
one
to,
one of the two.
There, well, two must sign. It doesn't necessarily need to be simultaneous. I think,
But you can't get by with one signature. You have to have two signatures.
that's my understanding.
Okay, well, that's tougher.
So, Mr. Tice, will you start that so that we can get Director Garner on the side?
Yes, I'll keep going.
Thank you. All right, we can move on. Anything else with financial? We can move on to director's matters. Forming a subcommittee for legal. This is you.
Well, I want to follow it closely. And I'll do the best I can, but I think it'd be better if the two of us did it together, because that was a group, because one of the thought was, like, if I'm bugging people all the time, that's not good. If you bug them, that's not so good. But if together we do one bug instead of two bugs, that's a little bit more efficient.
It would be efficient, but a bigger bug, yes.
What's the end goal of this and the tasks that you would see?
Well, I want to be obsessive about in the detail, but that my concern is in our previous litigations. There were a number of occasions where I thought the ball was kind of dropped or was not performed in its most optimal manner. And I don't know if one of us has been able, as lay people, to say, what about this? And either, put a bug in or something like that. Or, my concern with lawyers is if there's something that jumps out at me, I bring it up. Now, if they've already thought about it and they have an explanation, it's all good and good. All you gotta do is explain it. But if it's the sort of thing you don't do that, you always have to wonder, did they forget? And I think that's part of my due diligence is to bend over backwards to make sure that nothing's been missed.
So this is not a committee that would be directing our attorneys to do something.
No, I think it's just more collaboration of just, talking things out.
Okay. My concern is I don't want to be left out of any discussion with legal strategy. Or to have to wait 2 or 3 weeks for a board meeting to find out something significant changed.
I agree, that's my attitude. Yeah, as far as I'm concerned, committee of three.
Well,
Can't do it.
that's a board.
Well, I know, and that's why I said two. But yeah, like I said, I'm obsessive and I want to be right on top of it. Maybe you and I mean, a couple of us.
I would not like to give up my seat at that table either. And it is full of the questions. Yeah, so does anybody want to give up their seat?
I just asked Roger and Todd, would you guys want to be left out of the discussion with the attorneys, or do you care, or?
I am happy. I think they're professionals and I'm very happy to allow them to do their work.
I feel similarly. We brought this up before.
So the solution to that would be if we wanted to proceed and hold more frequent board meetings, we'd hold a board meeting and if you did not, would that be fine? Call a board meeting and those who wanted to come could come.
You could call them, you know, to potentially allay concerns, you could call them study sessions, at which no formal action can be taken.
There you go. I'm all for that.
They are still noticed like public, like special meetings, but you don't take any action.
And could that be done over the phone?
Yep, you can do any meeting over the phone. As long as the public. can
I like
access
the
it.
idea of a telephone study session.
A Zoom meeting, because we'd have to start it in public and then go into executive session.
Yeah,
Sounds good.
I'm all for a study committee of whoever wants to join. If you're good with that, I'm good with it.
Yeah, I don't want to keep anybody.
Okay, I just don't want to be left out because
Yeah, no. Well, like I said, we had this
I
conversation.
feel left out of this, you know, the suit anyway. I'm not named, so.
Last time I felt like I was the only one who was interested.
Yeah.
Committee of one, you know.
I'm supposing that this is primarily about Big Sky and, you know,
Also,
just.
Yeah.
I don't know what Mike's. Availability is. You know, just as a pragmatic concern, keep that in mind. You probably would need to give him more, heads up on any special meetings that you were asking me to attend. Than you would need.
I was thinking mostly it's him telling us things he wants us to know. And yeah, that's what I was concerned about.
Well, it sounds like this will be able to do, he can tell us and we can tell him and ask questions and do whatnot, and it'll be whatever we need. Okay, for whoever wants to come. Sounds good. Study sessions, as appropriate as somebody wants to call them. And we'll get with, Mike, I will look at availability with Mike and look at the schedule. I had said before, we ended up needing, it was an every 2-week event when things got going. I don't know that we are there, but we may be,
Yeah, I mean, so be it, that's what it takes.
so that's what it is.
I doubt it'd be that way forever, but if
No.
it's like that way for a couple months, better than losing a case.
So, okay, I will, talk to him about it. Good. Anything else on that? We'll move onward to item B, amending, the supermajority rule.
And I'll go ahead and take that off the agenda for right now. I'm again thinking in the long term of strengthening it up, you know, what I call that safety features and stuff like that. But I don't think there's anything required today. Like I said, might come back in a couple of months and say, maybe make it a little bit stronger.
Okay.
So just on that note, at the last regular board meeting, the board approved the specific language of, shall require the vote for. I have not yet, but I will provide that language to be incorporated in the bylaws. I thought I had the Word document, but I don't.
But it has been voted on, so. it's not there.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that
it's
language has
legally
been-
binding at this
That
point.
language has been adopted and is officially a part of your bylaws. It is not yet incorporated into the actual document.
Okay,
Yeah, like you, I'm interested in talking about this, but we got some big things to face right away.
Take next month for the
Yeah.
contact.
Good solution.
speaking of big things, we'll move on to item C. And I did not think to ask specifically, but we got an email from Mr. Tice this afternoon. Would you like to share your news, Mr. Tice, or shall I?
Well, wait, I thought that C was hiring an emergency engineer and D was him.
See, D is why we need an emergency engineer. So we needed a role, we need to, this is what my thinking is, that we will, an engineer will help us through this time period.
I guess my thinking is we already have engineers. And I mean, we have multiples. We have JVA, we have, how many do we have now? 2 or 3?
Yeah, well, see, the engineers on the payroll right now is Respect Engineering, RG and Associates Engineering, JVA Engineering, Brownsville Engineering, HDR's going away, so.
But we have 4. I guess my thinking is, when you said that, is that we already have 4 engineers. I think that's an ample pool to draw from, as opposed to hiring a specific one to. I guess I'm not sure their purpose, so maybe I should wait to hear that, or what your thinking is.
Would anybody entertain a motion to combine C and D? Because I think it's a lot easier to talk about it if we do both at the same time.
Sure, I move that we combine C and D.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous, yes.
Yeah, like, part of the challenge we have is we can't hire someone. Correct me if I'm wrong, you will anyway.
I will, I'm listening.
We must have 2 names publicly situated for 14 days before we can hire somebody.
Well, if there's fewer than 3, any of them are presumed to be the finalist. You're talking about the chief executive
Mhm.
level search,
Yes.
and the process that you have to go through for that. The district manager is a chief executive level position. So typically when this board has pursued, a district manager, it's gone out for the full hiring process after, contracting for interim services. Just to get back to the specific question, if there are fewer than 3 finalists, all applicants are deemed finalists. So you make that, notice that publicly, and then you make your decision within more than 14 days.
And why is that relevant? It's because we're gonna have a vacancy soon with no leadership. Because we can't fill the leadership position.
Well, before we had a gal by the name of Kristen Buck, who was our interim
That was the name.
manager.
Yes.
And so we actually had her step in and perform that, although I have to be honest, twice she's done it. I actually think that the people in-house did as much or more than she did, and I think we paid her a lot of money for, I'm not exactly sure, and maybe other people can correct me, but I missed some of the overall leadership part of that. Because it seemed like most of the work came from internally, from Sam, Jess, Doug, I mean. And so that probably wasn't my favorite arrangement, knowing what I know now.
Mhm.
I mean, I didn't know that then, but that's my perception.
Yeah, having been on the other end of that, I agree with you. That was not ideal.
Does staff have the bandwidth to cover for this for a few months?
Not at the engineering level.
Yeah. I don't think so, Roger. I mean, my assessment is that.
But we're
staff
looking
is-
for leadership and management, not engineering.
Well, I don't know that we aren't looking for both at the same time.
I mean, to fill this immediate need. We have 4 different engineering firms at our disposal. We've got very capable staff. I'm just curious if staff can provide that management
Staff can't
function.
report to an engineer.
I don't
By
understand
what?
that.
There's a different, no, I don't believe so.
An
If I
outside
could answer.
firm.
They have their own jobs. They do a lot. They have been filling in. I think we have been pressing upon staff for a long time because of all of these transfers, and we have to look at personnel issues, and that's still something that needs to happen. The problem, so they can do the day-to-day functions, and that is not a problem for us. It will be a problem for them, and we'll have to look at that. However, engineering wise, we have a lot of projects, and we can say, you're the engineer, go off and do what you want, and then send us the check, and that is what we would have to do if we did not look at somebody else. today I'm looking at, we had JVA come in and ask us questions for one project. That was an information gap. Looking at the risk, we talked about the risk management and how we need project management for milestones and getting all of that on. We've got a couple other things in the works, who answers the questions and who brings it all together, and that's the piece that's going to be.
Well, we could still use the Kristen, I'm just saying, it just seemed like to me, that was a lot of money for not a lot of work, in my opinion. But,
It wasn't an ideal outcome. That's absolutely true.
but I would just kind of like to make a general statement, I guess, about the whole thing. So I have to honestly tell us, all of us directors, I am truly disappointed that we created a place or a work environment that within a year, a person will end up leaving us and go on to another job. I think it's a reflection on us. I think it's poor leadership on our part. I think it's poor management of the people on our part. I think that we should honestly take a good hard look at ourselves and how we treat people and how we treat others. And I think we need to do a little soul searching as to how we handle our interactions amongst ourselves and amongst the employees so that we have people who stay. At my firm, the shortest we have anybody that's been there 17 years. And we make a big deal out about taking care of people, and to go through managers like we have here, and I wasn't here for Nina or the other, but I gotta tell you, I think it's pretty sad that we created a place that has done that. And so, anyway, I'm disappointed in every one of us, honestly.
Thank you for that. As far as solving the situation, did you have something to say?
Yeah, I wanted to ask, Jeff, your engineering meetings. I understand you've added some outside flavor to that. You talked a little bit about that?
Well, yeah, so every Tuesday, we have a project engineering meeting at 9 AM with JVA, and then if we have to have our RG at that meeting, like last week, we had RG Associates, and then now next week we'll have Respect if we approve this contract. So, and then Mike Yost in the room, who's a retired engineer from Olson. If you look at the engineering firm Olson, it's a huge engineering firm, done a lot of water wastewater work. So Mike has graciously volunteered to listen in the meetings too. So so we work with engineers on each project and we keep the projects going. So we're completing projects and we're coming up with better and more efficient ideas on the projects.
If you were in a position to hire somebody to fill in for you leave in a temporary basis, do you have somebody in mind?
Oh, I think the biggest thing we run into, and everybody's run into this at Green Mountain Water and Wastewater Authority, is trying to keep the board happy. So the customers are very happy. I mean, I get emails all day long. Just got an email today from a customer thanking all the staff. So the customers, we send out 27,000 ballots. We get 3,000 back. So there's only around 10% of the people who even track the water board. And so as a majority, a lot of the people who work in staff grew up here. A lot of my best friends live here. My brother's wife grew up here. And so we have a great relationship with the community. A lot of people are very happy. We're in full compliance. We have a great relationship with Colorado Department of Public Health and Environment. We're in full compliance. We got a perfect safety record, perfect compliance record. We have a good working relationship with Metro Water Recovery. We deal with Denver Water every week. So the biggest challenge, and we have good, we had a pretty good relationship with Merrick Engineering with Terry, and we understand the board's philosophy with Merrick. And we keep Fossil Ridge happy. We just cleaned their whole wastewater collection system in the past 2 months. So we do operation maintenance there. We have a great relationship with JVA. So the biggest challenge by far for the staff is the board, by far. Nothing else even comes close. And trust me, I tried my hardest, guys.
No,
I tried my hardest.
what I'm really asking you is,
So it's up to the board what they want,
yeah.
because we don't know what they want.
I guess, but,
Yeah.
you know, if. What I think Director Hooks is saying is that we need an engineer, we're gonna have these guys, we got them on contract, we're gonna pay them anyway. So we pay a retainer if we're not using them, I would guess.
No, they just charge us per hour.
Yeah, is that a situation that you think will hold us in good stead until we find someone? We don't know how long that'll be. Or what I'm really asking is, you know, we've got a retired engineer who's working with you guys right now. Is he someone we should think about as a potential substitute for a while who understands the business? And has an affinity for the work.
Oh, yeah, I talk to Mike all the time. Mike definitely understands. Michael Yost sitting right there definitely understands everything we do because he's done it for what, 40 years. I know he's not allowed to talk, but yeah, I talk to him every Tuesday, so he definitely understands. But you know, keep in mind too, you know, JVA's works with everybody, or just all the surrounding water districts too, so they understand all the nuts and bolts of the job also.
So Jeff, I don't speak for the board, but I appreciate what you've done in the year and a month that I've known you. But I would like to ask you, you've outlined kind of what the problem is, but what can we do as a board to improve this then? What's like the number one thing or the top three things that we can do differently to keep future managers and current employees happy?
Well, you know, I'm good friends with a lot of surrounding water districts, and if you look at attend other board meetings, it's not micromanaged down to very low levels. It's the board acts as a whole, as a 5-member board acting as a whole, and then acts at a very high level and says, okay, get this done, and then they rely on the staff to get it done instead of going out to do that work themselves. But you know, keep in mind, I support you guys' philosophy. I mean, you guys hired me, so I support your philosophy. It just creates, you know, if you work in the workplace and you're micromanaged, it's like, it just creates stress. You know, nobody likes to be micromanaged. It just creates unnecessary stress for the employees. That's, you know, I've been in this business 33 years, and I've been through micromanagement, teamwork. So I choose teamwork instead of micromanagement, but some people do choose micromanagement.
Well, I appreciate that. Hate to lose you.
And then
We'll move forward.
There's a lot of legalities too. Most water districts, surrounding water districts don't face all the legalities like Green Mountain Water faces, because we spent a lot of money and a lot of time doing depositions last week. At one time I was sitting in the room, we had Doug, Josh, and 4 attorneys in there. So you're talking $2,000 an hour. So you had $2,000 an hour in that room. I thought, holy mackerel, that's a lot of money for saying yes and no, and no and yes. So yeah, there's a lot of legalities and a lot of tough, stressful, you know, micromanagement. And I wanted to make everybody happy, guys. I tried my hardest to make you all happy. Sorry on some things.
Well, we do appreciate all your hard work.
Can I ask a question? We talked before, I guess like talk to everybody. That collaborative leadership approach that you guys had before. If we were to pay you better this time, do you think the leadership team could run things for a while?
Well, I don't think it's a function of money, believe it or not. I think it's a function of philosophy, you know, because it's like in my 33-year career, I started off with micromanagement. And it's like, oh man, micromanagement's tough. And then we were actually trained on teamwork. You know, we actually had to bring in trainers to train us on how to do teamwork because we were micromanaged so much. So we went through 3 days of 8-hour training on teamwork, believe it or not. And that, I thought teamwork works great. So then you go into other fields where, okay, we're going to go away from micromanagement or teamwork. So So it's a function of, okay, there's the function of, do we go with, letting the teams, the board should be a team, there's if you look at a lot of the SDA rules, it's like you should function as a 5-member board, but there's a lot of direction. That's why I take so many notes, because I get so many eyes. There's a lot of eyes in the board. So we're trying to figure out, okay, what does the board want? This board member wants this board member. That's why if you look at a lot of board meetings, they ask you to vote. It's like, okay, take a vote so we have direction. So we have the philosophy of, do we have, how much micromanagement do we go to? And then we have the philosophy of, okay, we gotta, what kind of legalities are we facing in the long run? So it's not really a function of pay or money. It's a function
But
of.
that doesn't hurt.
I'm sure the staff would go for it, but
Maybe we should ask the guys who might be getting the checks.
yeah, oh yeah, I'm sure they,
Yeah, I was gonna say, what-
keep in mind the staff. If you look at the history of the staff, I mean, there's one year where Jesse and Sam had 36 board meetings. What year was that, 2020? 2019? 36 board meetings. I'm like,
And some
holy
of
my,
us were ugly.
oh yeah,
3 or 4 a month.
yeah. So that created a lot of mental stress, because if you get to work at 7 a.m. in the morning, and then you're at a board meeting till 10 or 11, 12 at night, then you got to go back to work, and then you do that 36 times
Every week.
it's a lot of mental stress. And then you try to put the pieces of the puzzle together, and you're like, oh man, I don't know, I'm missing a puzzle piece here, I'm missing a piece. So yeah, it's tough where, there's, the staff suffered a lot. And then the latest, Colorado opens record request through legal created 30,000 files. So, and we're still digging up files. So, and then, I don't know how much I'm supposed to talk about depositions, but there was a lot of research. That's why we recognized everybody on the district manager report, how much research in depositions. I mean, the research is going back all the way to 1996. And you got to imagine some of the staff was in high school in 1996, or not even in high school in 1996.
So you and I haven't overlapped very much, other than me being in the gallery. But I think you might misread the board in terms of its direction of not always taking a vote and getting you explicit direction, because I think you guys were quite often deliberately not doing motions in order to just let the staff go do stuff. I saw that a lot. And Dylan's been pretty good about saying, oh, you don't need a motion for that. Are you asking the board that it would be useful if we did more of that? We gave you more explicit direction as a.
I think he's saying less. I think to me, what I'm hearing, well, I shouldn't answer, just we should let him say.
Well, a good example is Karen's out talking to Raphtilis, like we're talking to JVA, Karen's upset because we're talking to JVA, and then JVA is trying to figure out how to put the pieces of the puzzle together. So whose job is it to coordinate Raphtilis and JVA? Is it a board member or is it a staff member? It's a perfect example right there. That's common for a lot of projects. So we want to do what is right to please the board. And then we feel like we failed. It's just like your risk management plan. It's like, okay, we could add, there's the contracts right there. We could add risk management to the contracts. It's easy enough. But there's a lot of things we feel like, oh, we can't keep up because we feel like we failed the board. We know we haven't failed our customers. We know we haven't failed the Colorado Department of Public Health and Environment. We know we haven't failed safety. We know the staff isn't getting sued. The staff isn't out there wrecking trucks. The staff isn't breaking their legs. We just feel like we're under a lot of stress because we feel like we failed the board. If you look at, there's a file for long-term planning. It includes the master plan for 2020 for sewer, the master plan for 2021 for wastewater or water, all from Merrick, and then it includes a bunch of spreadsheets. And then we had to convert the so-called FICA spreadsheet that was used for building maintenance at Lockheed Martin. Took us hours and hours to convert that. Thanks to Sam. Good job, Sam. Took hours and hours to convert that spreadsheet to relate to our world, because that spreadsheet was created for the Lockheed Martin building world. So we converted it, and then we still feel like we failed because now we got to create more documents. So
To me, looking in from the outside, so I've run a number of small companies, like say 10 to 300 people. I will tell you that we like, say, if we use Lockheed Martin's facility, we're using a multi-billion dollars company's ideas and trying to have them perform at that level. Or we're using, and I'm not saying that's necessarily, but I'm just saying, sometimes we're imposing things that are probably great from all this data point. I mean, you can have 8,000 different data things, but what do you really need to run that company effectively and simply? You know, like to keep it simple, stupid. I mean, if you get into so much detail and so much minutia, what all we do is just place huge time constraints on them. And it's not that they're not smart enough or capable enough to do it, because they've proven they are. But I think what happens is, it's like, instead of giving them a 40 or 50-hour work week, we're giving them a 70-hour work week. And to me, I think, you know, what I hear is, it just creates stress. So and then on top of that, they have their regular, so let's like the Colorado Open Records request.
Yeah.
They have all that. And so I guess as I've observed this over the last year or so, I actually would say that I think at times we get way down into things that we don't need to be into. My personal opinion. And I think it's taking a toll.
Yeah, no, I get that.
Yeah, I would second that, and I brought this up in previous meetings. This concept of micromanaging, I don't know where it comes from, but it's unacceptable. It's purely unacceptable, and we have to change. And all of these different committees and things that we're creating to micromanage this staff, we've got to get out of that mode. We're going to keep churning through management and employees. We lost a key employee 5 months ago because of this. I've never seen anything like it.
Todd, did you think you got an answer? I'm trying to figure out what I really appreciate all of that. And I get the perspective, but I don't know whether the board should do less direction and just say, hey, it'd be good if the staff looked at X. Or do we want to say, I move that staff look at X?
Well,
I just don't know what we're being asked to do.
I don't know, this is a conversation not on the agenda. I'd like to kind of think about this and table it for now and get back to the discussion at hand. We are rehashing a lot of decisions over the past year right now. So let's think about things on a case-by-case basis. If there are things that we can do different in the future, I will as well. And get back to what we need to do for today, which I believe I heard a solution being suggested in this conversation, that we have an engineer who already knows the business, who has been graciously volunteering for unknown reasons at the district level, craziness, and may be able to help us at this time keep things on track while we get a permanent solution.
Well,
Was that
can I
a
also
possibility?
Yeah, I think it is. I was gonna ask Dylan. So what? Because I'm going back to Kristen. What advantage, because I was never there when that all transpired, what advantage is there to her versus someone else?
Well, the big advantage is with Kristen and her company is C.R.S. is that she's been here before, so she's familiar with both. Well, she's familiar with the board, she's familiar with the staff, and she's familiar with the operations and infrastructure of the district. She also, in particular, C.R.S. generally has special district experience. There are compliance obligations that are different between municipalities, for example, and special districts, and she has that experience.
She has the knowledge.
Yes. Yeah, and then the disadvantage, the other side is certainly the expense. You're gonna spend, it is a premium to have an interim district manager, whether it's Kristen Buck or C.R.S. or any other contract manager, administrator. Really, you pay that premium to buy yourself time to find the right permanent employee.
Correct.
Right.
Okay, I was just wanting to know.
Following up on Kristen. She was She was an engineer, I take it.
She is, I
Okay.
think she's a BD.
And so bringing her in would speak to the need for an engineer. As opposed to, we get somebody else is an engineer.
Well, maybe, with CGRS, you're gonna run into scope of work considerations. You know, if you hire her to be your district manager, that scope of work is going to be different from, that may very well not include engineering work that you would otherwise expect or want to be performed, unless you specifically contract for that. So I don't, if it's a liaison type need that you are anticipating, where you need someone, an engineer, to speak to the contract and engineering firms, she could do that. If it's more doing engineering work in-house, I don't think that would be in the scope of work.
Well, I'm trying to get my hands around. I'm seeing at least two options, I'm sure there's more, but one of them is the Kristen option. And I'm not sure exactly what she brings, and that's why I was asking a question about engineering. The other model was when the employees were running the thing a while back. That's kind of the other model. And then we're talking about bringing in an engineer. And so that's why I'm trying to go, these two models, would bringing in an engineer to either one of those models be the good solution or third scenario?
Well, I would strongly urge the board not to rely on sort of middle management staff for very long, because you really need you need a single point of contact between the board and the district for operations issues.
So you're gonna recommend the Kristen approach?
I'm just saying, don't do it very long, 6 months with 3 staff members doing
Oh,
district manager role, that's gonna create more problems than.
so you're saying it will be okay to do a collaborative group if it's a short period?
I mean, yeah, this is essentially what you did,
Yeah,
for
we
a
did that.
period of time previously, and your district functions very well at a operations level. So your staff, you can rely on your staff to carry on operations for quite a long time. I don't think you should.
And I did want to talk to Sam. And if we did go back to that approach of employees running the district, it would be appropriate that there be some real financial compensation to them, because that's kind of a trade-off. It's not like we lose the manager, and therefore we save all that salary. I mean, we're looking at, we still need to invest a certain amount of money. Now, whether we invested in some individual, Kristen or somebody else, or our employee group, to me, I guess I don't really care how the money is invested, but you do need to make an investment in the management. And that's why I'm trying to get a grip on what's the best option that would give us the best manager.
And that is a long-term discussion that I think we need to have. So I think that's a separate item, and we can,
Well, are we allowed to authorize at this point a search for someone?
Sure.
Can we can I make a motion that we go out and put out a search thing as soon as possible? Or to take applications for another district manager?
I would say yes, except I would suggest a committee of the board, who would be the point of contact for that?
What do you mean?
We're
Why
not
wouldn't
getting-
it just come why wouldn't it just come in general to the,
To a staff member?
yeah, Doug?
We would have to nominate somebody and have them step up into that position. Or you hire a recruiter. I mean, that would be, Doug is like our HR person, but this is somebody different, and that would be.
Well, I guess to me, what I've seen in the past is we lollygag, so I don't want to lollygag. I want to kind of get with the program and get things in the works and also, and I'm just throwing this out there, I don't know about like if there's certain minimum qualifications that they have to have by law. But one thing that I'll just use from looking past back at Green Mountain. Something I would want to potentially consider is if we would be willing to look at staff people to move up, even if they are not engineers, but have an intimate knowledge of what goes on here, because if they're invested and there's continuity and there's a chance, it gives them a chance to move up within the organization, better themselves, and keep a much better, in my opinion, potentially continuity in the district.
What do you think of that, Sam?
Without putting anybody on the spot, let me say that the board, we asked for that, when our last manager left. At that time, we didn't end up with any takers. That is a possibility. I think that's a great possibility. I would still support that. I would also support, consideration of a flat management structure where they have been working and doing this for a long time. So convert it to a flat management structure and elevate the district engineer and have a board coordinator. There are possibilities. I don't think this is a do it right now. I think we had pressure to do it right now.
We took an awful long time to do it right now the last time. I'm just for me.
We had it open and that was about it, you know.
Well, if he's gone on the 23rd, we gotta have something like the 24th. Something.
I
need somebody on the
suggested,
20th. We need some,
the suggestion
Crossover.
is out there that we can already do this with an engineer to keep the projects going, and the other, we could reach out the other thing the district manager does is, compliance issues and paperwork and doing the filing and getting things done. I wondered about asking CGS, who's doing that? C.R.S. Who has, who does the notes? And they do special district management, just to keep us apprised like that.
Todd, I agree with you. Fast and efficient is the way to go. We couldn't get there last time because there were too many people stirring the pot.
We did have a lot.
We did, and I might have done a little of that stirring. But I was supposed to be one of the searchers, and every time I try to send stuff out to people, it'd be, 4, 5, 6 days before I got anything back. We gotta do better than that.
Right, it just seems like it's easy to put stuff off.
Yeah, I would much prefer to hire an executive search firm. It's much more efficient. These people know what the hell they're doing. I have worked with some in the past and.
Didn't we not try that?
No, we did not.
Oh, okay.
But I mean, I've seen it work. It's a little money, but you get what you pay for, I think. And that would certainly qualify people here to submit their name just as well. Well, it moves the process forward, I think, very quickly.
Right.
But I do think in the interim, we got a solution right in front of us, a guy who wanted my chair. And he's sitting right over here. And I wouldn't mind bringing him into the discussion if you all are amenable to that.
I don't know, but I don't know why not.
Yeah, I'm in favor of it.
Yeah, because I just think, I ran an office in the Pentagon of 44 of the world's best space engineers. I know the capability that engineers bring to the discipline in that world. It's not, water and waste, but it's engineering. And I would much prefer somebody talking to the board who actually understands what we're doing as opposed to having an expertise in one particular discipline behind the wall. I respect that, but we got a guy who's spent his lifetime doing this. Let's at least ask his opinion. What's his view of the right way forward? Because he's the one that's sitting in these meetings. So Doug volunteered his time and volunteered to sit on the board. I don't mind having a guy who wanted to be here instead of me.
Mike, would you care to join us?
Sure. It's loud at
Yes, please.
this point. Thanks for putting up with that.
No, I'm just trying to be I guess, as candid as I can so that we're not spinning our wheels and wasting motion, because I feel like we do a lot of that.
This morning, I had no idea.
I had to tell them before I told
Oh, of course,
I didn't wanna do it.
I understand.
them.
I had no idea. I was here just to listen to Mandy's report, so. And again, you know why I'm here is originally I was gonna throw my name in the hat when Jeff Baker was going to be term limited out in 2025. That's why I was here, and then it kind of snowballed into me being here. So anyway, that's still my intent, was my intent. And then I struck up a conversation with Jeff after that, and so he invited me to sit on the weekly meetings and got to know Sam a little bit and Mandy and so forth. So I don't know if this is a job interview, or I don't even know if I'm being offered a job or.
Can you answer the question?
Yes, I'm sorry, yeah, my mind's going.
A way to, do we need, you have been sitting in on these meetings.
Yeah,
talking, is there a need?
yes, just thinking on the fly here, what could be done, somebody like me, managing the contracts, JVA, respect, RG, of course, yeah, absolutely, got to know them a little bit. I understand what they're doing, I could manage their contracts plus the construction contracts on an interim basis until y'all figure out what you want to do.
Well, in a way, and I guess it could be, I don't know if you want to do anything in retirement, but.
Not so much. It came up that you actually advertised for an in-house engineer at one
Mhm.
point here and maybe. And that came conversations, I even chatted with Karen about that and Jeff, like retirement's a sweet gig. So I'm not looking for a job. And so I'm not.
Well, that's what I'm asking. And I mean, if it's something where like, if we could use in the interim and that gives you something and money and stuff and meanwhile keeps us going. And it's something you can enjoy in the short term or an interim
Yeah,
time.
I literally had a conversation with Karen and even Jeff, to some extent I do this on a volunteer basis, but I wouldn't have any authority and
Right.
that would be awkward. But I'm not looking for a job. I've
I
enjoyed my
understand that,
retirement,
but-
but
right,
I
but what
love water, wastewater business.
But that's what I'm asking is really, is it something? I mean, because I'm very thankful. I didn't even know until today that you would sit on the engineering meetings, but as we figure out, I guess, what we want to do. Like with Kristen, I just thought we spent a lot of money and I wasn't really sure what we were getting.
Mhm.
Do you know what I'm saying?
Oh,
And
sure.
whereas, I mean, I'm just as happy to pay you you were truly interested in the district, and I'm not saying she wasn't, because she probably has on a high level, much more a broader probably base with all these other places, but you have all the basic knowledge that runs it.
Would you be willing to do something like this to help us for half year?
I would only be interested in something that would be part-time and temporary.
Okay,
And y'all can figure out what the compensation is. There has to be
Right.
some level.
right.
What,
Well, that's
what
what I'm
is,
saying,
what is,
But
part-
this is,
what is part-time?
pardon,
What would part-time be?
even less than half,
Okay.
less than 20 hours, like maybe.
10
I don't know.
20?
Yeah, 20.
And what would
Less,
temporary?
you know,
20 makes him gags, like 10 to 19.
Yeah, I
You
think I
can't
mentioned
get, you
before,
can't get 20 out.
One board meeting most of the time, so.
Yeah, I'm turning 65. I'm going on, my God, I'm going on for Medicare for the love of Pete. So I don't need health.
So you're on the verge of death.
Dude, come on, that's cold.
You see, Sherry on the verge of death.
Yeah. That conversation.
And what would temporary be? 3 months?
As long as it needs, I mean, you have, because I'm not talking about being interim district manager, I'm just saying. at the
Right,
end of the day,
basically-
Fill in as a
Correct.
engineering, manage the engineering contracts.
Right, well,
The
we
construction
have
contract.
adequate staff. I mean.
Oh, yeah, more than adequate staff. Staff is outstanding. To be blunt, district managers come and go. And board members come and go. There's been,
Right.
talk about the turnover with
district managers, turnover of the board has been
Yeah.
a lot in the last 2 years, you know. I don't know, I digress. I'm not sure where I was going with that,
That's
but,
okay.
I'm sorry, yeah, maybe I should.
I'm gonna ask you a question, so you don't have to. There's, in the community, there's been a lot of boards to pro-development in the past. Recall, the boards to won't even talk to developers. Where do you fit in this, so we know what we're dealing with?
Yeah, great question. You know, I'm not, I've lived here a long time and, 20 years and good Lord willing, another 20 years. And I remember going up and down Alameda and Union, and there was just a fraction of the traffic that there is now. I get it. I would rather there not be anymore, but the fact of the matter, there is going to be continued development. So I'm not either, I'm just realistically, I'm not for or against development. I would rather no development happen. I mean, if I somehow could flip the switch and say no more people can move to Colorado, let alone Lakewood, I would do that in an instant, but that's not reality. So instead, you know, maybe we get along with, you know, the other districts and you guys know way more about what you're in litigation for. So I'm not here to say I'm either for or against development will happen, but because it is happening, let's be realistic about it and make decisions on a case-by-case basis, what's good for the Green Mountain Water and Sand District, not am I pro-development or am I anti-development? Like I said, I would love to see no more people move to Colorado, let alone Lakewood, but that's not reality. So I'm an engineer, I'm a recovering engineer, but
I love that. Let me, in my mind, restate what I think I heard you say. You're not gonna be using any of those 10 to 19 hours to talk to your development buddies and tell them how they can meld with Green Mountain and have a wonderful life.
no, I won't. I won't do that. I don't have any of those buddies anymore. And really, I'm 5 years from retiring from being a full-time consulting engineer, and I taught school at Mines for a while, and now I'm going into trying to go into full-time retirement. So I don't have any ties or relationships with developers, let alone engineers. I still have some friends at Olson Associates, but I tell them, don't walk away from Green Mountain, because right now it's a bit of a, I'm probably should stop right there if I answer your question.
No, I think.
Yeah, no, I don't have any ties to developers. I'm not pro in any way, shape, or form.
I already suspected that, but I
Yeah.
wanted to ask the question,
No,
because
I
it's
appreciate
always
you
an
asking
issue
me.
for
It seems to be, yeah.
people, yeah.
I understand, I
I
understand.
mean, I'm not, I don't have any developer friends, but even somebody that said, no, aren't you pro-development guys? No, I'm just pro being nice and listening. They don't say that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, well put. Well put.
right,
So,
thank you.
was that gonna be your question, Dave? I'm not, I don't know where. this is
Well,
coming from.
right now, my mind, what I'm thinking is, what are we talking about getting? On the one hand, I've heard need an engineer. And if it's an engineer, you're our guy. On the other hand, we need a district manager. At that point, it's like, well, then I'm not so sure. So I was like, what are we talking about with you here?
Not the district manager.
Okay, so
Not me. I'm trying to retire, but I'd love to fill on whether it's 10 to 15, 20 hours a week on whatever.
I think he's talking about coordinating
Yeah.
all of the engineering and watching over it.
What
Why
I,
you
what
find
I
a
see
district
here is the
manager?
option of having an adult behind the wall that we can rely on until we find the real person.
and I think got me back to confusing again. If we were doing an engineer, it's like, okay, here's our guy. But at some point, we need a manager. Now, if it's a temporary manager, permanent manager, anyway, management. Is he management, or are we gonna have management somewhere else? Is it two parts? Do we have a management part and an engineering part? He's obviously the engineering part. Is he both parts?
Can we?
No, he's really just saying overseeing engineering is what
You
I,
have some active engineering and construction projects right now, and I'm listening all of a sudden as of just a few hours ago, that there's a need.
Well,
While you find a manager and you figure out, are you gonna hire a search firm, executive search firm, or how are you gonna do that? You have that, I'm just saying.
If you're gonna be-
meantime, you have
if you're
active
gonna be our
projects.
chief of engineering, I'm all for that. That's like, you know, I vote for it.
Well,
Now,
well, just a second. Somebody needs to make a motion. You all need to make a decision, or at least propose a decision, because you've nearly talked yourselves into having a consulting engineer, which is fine, but someone needs to make a motion to make some forward progress here.
well, you know, I'm just trying to get the big picture. If I'm seeing him fill in one niche, then what about the other niche? And so I get the
Then you
two,
can have two motions.
okay, but I'm still trying to figure out what's the other
We
niche gonna
don't
be.
have one yet. All I have on there is let's do the engineering, so that's all I'm suggesting right now. So can I make a motion that we move forward on hiring a consulting engineer on a part-time basis during this,
transition
yes, until.
or the executive search, or do you
Yeah.
wanna say it?
But
Can we do that, or
That's-
can we ask Mr. Tyus to proceed? It would not be the board hiring, right? Is that your concern?
yeah. that's-
Well, do we want to,
Top level. Unless you're.
I don't-
suggesting
I
it's
don't-
a consulting contract.
Yeah, I don't envision this as a chief executive position, nor do I think that that position, on an interim basis requires the full level of formality.
Good.
May I ask one clarification? I could do either. Would I be working as a consultant to the district, or would I be a part-time employee?
That's a good point. I was thinking more a part-time employee.
Either would be fine. With me, but just for clarification, I'm. It's up to you either.
We make an employee, yeah.
Really, what?
Yeah. Director Garner's concern is that, if you make him an employee, that's a decision to be made at the district manager level rather than the board level. I don't think that that's a statutory thing. I think that that's a bylaws issue. I mean, do however you would like, you can instruct.
I'm comfortable either way.
Yeah, you can instruct. the district
Make a
manager
motion for
Tyus
the district to hire a part-time engineer.
Not really. This is all catching me flat-footed. frankly.
Well, I didn't see it coming either.
Yeah.
He already comes to it. We already get it free, we get it free right now, so why would we need to pay him? He's already, he emailed me this morning, he said he'd be here at 9 AM. I'm like, okay.
Or is that a detail that can be worked out later, but I could certainly work as a consultant. If that would be the board's
I think
preference.
it's,
It would be it's a legal matter, I believe, to have you in this position as a district employee.
Probably as clean as. I would-
Yes.
I would agree.
So I'd recommend a motion for Mr. Tyus for the district to hire a part-time engineer.
Second.
Correct. Any more discussion?
Yes. So if we were to proceed with this, are we eventually gonna end up with a district manager and an engineer, a staff engineer?
Can we do an engineer right now? And then let's talk about how to fill the gap. What we want to do.
Because my
next.
concern is eventually that we just have a district manager. I've not been in
Well, that's
favor.
what but that's what he's actually offering. He's offering a temporary
But what
solution.
I'm saying, are we building this into a two position?
No,
Okay,
No.
all right, then I'm fine.
We're all too cheap for that.
You're right, it's probably the cleanest if I'm just an employee.
Yeah.
And we can figure out.
But now I'm back to
So
confusion. Are we hiring him as a temporary manager?
No.
technically, no.
And I don't,
No, he would be like you said, like an engineering project manager. I'm not sure what we would call him.
Well,
Yes.
that part I think I understand. I'm okay with. I'm going back to Roger's. Well, what about the manager? We still.
Well, when we hire a manager, because what he is offering is a temporary solution for us. That's what he's offering. He's said he does not want a full-time position. He wants to retire. But because of his interest and his living here and his interest in the district and his willingness to help, and honestly, probably just his,
Is he a temporary solution to the engineering, or is he a temporary solution to the management?
engineering.
He's a bridge
Well,
to the management.
the idea is going to be that the staff are going to handle the management.
Okay, well, there you go. That was the question.
Yeah.
That's been unstated, I think, explicitly.
Well, this is important. The staff did not handle the point of contact for the district manager. All this documentation is procedures from Kristen Buck. So Kristen Buck created all these procedures that was passed on to Greg. Then Greg left, then she passed them on to me. The staff has none of this type of procedures on being the point of contact between the board, the DOLA and all that. So you'd have to train somebody in the staff to do that if you want to train somebody in the staff to do that. Or you go back to Kristen Buck or what Director Morgan said, that the elected officials manage water districts. Sue Blair manages water districts.
Okay.
So you have three choices. Staff, trying to train up staff to do all the point of contact for all this, the board meeting, the management of the information. Or you have Kristen Buck come back and do it. She's the one that trained me. Or you have the professional organization that does it for a lot of districts.
And that's a big decision. We're still talking about just the engineer temporary, because there is a solution for that. You can keep us on track. That is what I'm worried about. That is something that we can do. So I'd like to call the question on the engineer and have a vote on that. We've had a motion and a second on the table. I say all in favor of the district manager hiring a part-time engineer. That is unanimous approval. Thank you very much. Thank you for being put on the spot, interview and volunteering.
Okay. You're sure to negotiate hours and pay.
Oh, okay. So Mike, would you take Mountain Dew and snacks?
Wow.
We are cheap.
And we all have twisters too.
Oh, yeah, sometimes we have these liquors, yeah.
I guess that's perhaps a follow-on discussion with
I-
staff or somebody about what the compensation is, the exact hours and so forth.
Yeah, you,
Role, responsibility, job description, so forth. Perhaps I can draft a.
if you could help us draft that, you have experience with that, and if you could work with us on that, and feel free to call me. If there's any, clarifications, and we can keep going there.
So you want Director Morgan to do it or you want me to do it?
If I would like you to work on it, and if you need any clarifications on what we need, if there's any, I'm available. But you do the hiring.
If she doesn't answer her phone, I'm available. Could we take 10 minutes before we go to item 11?
No, we can take 10 minutes, but we still have to come back and figure out what we're gonna do about the district manager position.
I know.
Okay, so we can come back and talk about item 10C(A), since we combined.
Okay.
C and D, we're not done with 10C yet.
So,
Right,
No conversations. And then 3 4 minutes.
10-minute break, we will, 15 minutes,
Here, ask the director.
come back at 8:45.
We'll have to get you this.
Okay, that was entertaining.
I know.
Yes.
I
That's
was,
awesome. We are. He's already been a two-sergeant. I thought you somehow. I gotta get somebody to pull me on this legal.
Yeah, good.
Yeah, and those were good questions. I appreciate that discussion.
Yeah, just, somebody's got to punch holes. Yeah.
well, and that's why.
I wish I would have spoken up earlier.
Oh, just out of curiosity, you're still here, is there something on the agenda for you?
No, I'm curious about the engineering. That's what our weekly meetings, you know,
Yeah.
how we can continue to.
But I talked to.
And then I'm somebody else.
Yeah, I know that about you.
Well, it with any profession, if somebody's a professional, do what they're told. And that's. All my explanation, and I guess in my mind, I'm just, they're talking about how much problem.
Yeah, you better get some meat right.
Like, why get little these that you all the names? That's what we.
I think you're trying your best.
Your office, a whole silo. In and of itself. Yeah. Legal silo. I'm not sure that's why I'm here.
You probably also take no, I can give you the code tomorrow. Actually, that would be. That way, I'll give you the code, then you can create your own passwords, and then you make. Or Julie gives you the permission. Yeah, that would. Oh, yeah. We try to have that. Yeah, this happens. No, never mind. I know. I was trying to work for. I came from Rattler County Water at times. There's been there 15 years. We appreciate some getting going to boil. Hopefully I can hide out in the corner.
From the.
Yeah. Both our best friends, we're the general manager, but we're still like me.
Oh, I was,
You can mute from one set, as I can say. You can mute from over there.
and then.
Yeah.
We had internet.
What I told John this.
Yeah.
I keep looking at John. Yeah. And I was looking on the slide because I guess my head to look at it. He's like, look at that. Right here. What's that? Some of the questions they're asking, I was like, look at John. He's like, oh, okay.
I know him.
John's going way back.
Yeah.
That was fun. I'll be John.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, he's.
Did you do? Pipeline projects with them?
He's super smart. Yeah. Well, yeah, I don't know what's going on. A lot smarter.
Well, we just gotta stay on our lane. Us lawyers.
That's a different deal, but.
I don't wanna do. Yeah, my dad, he was cop, he was like, we were all lawyers. Women, I mean. District.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
My dad got some
years.
Well, that would be my question, is what could the court order you to do?
Just like.
That's it, you don't know.
We don't, but.
I don't think they can do anything, so therefore.
You're doing, talking about Jeff, you know, I was not for attorneys there, I was sitting in that room for 2 days and I had meetings.
Well, like I say, if you just sit there and say, I give up, what can they get out of you?
Okay.
Well, it's kind of matter of giving up.
Yeah.
I mean, we're
Oh, you don't hire?
going to.
Yeah, that's.
Well, like I say,
He's sleeping. What are you? If you're.
You and mom are getting all safe.
They don't have any.
Yeah.
You got it.
I shot it. Feeding the rest of
She. We tried with the first one and it was terrible.
Just a little bit of work.
And then we tried a little bit with our second, and we had the same issue. So this time.
So you've learned after.
Yeah. We're doing it.
It's nice.
Yeah, so he goes down at 6.
Really, that early?
It's about 6 to 5, like,
Wow.
he wakes up at midnight and 3 and eats. So I get up in the night, and then Julie gets up for the beginning.
Nice interruption sleep.
Yes,
Well, when you get older, you have to get up to go to the bathroom. Instead of feeding babies, you just get up to go to the bathroom.
yeah. I'm doing both now.
Oh, my gosh.
Scared me. You got, oh, okay. I guess my, you don't show up. You don't have a courage, you don't show up.
I think we created. I do.
Well, what's the matter? I mean,
Well, that's where we kind of just realize that they.
See, I
Doing both. If we don't show up.
But I just think, I mean, I just,
We're hurting a biggest.
I watch him and I.
Well, if you got two
I
lawsuits
just
going
watch
on,
these guys.
in that case,
It's stress.
you're gonna have to
And to me.
pay your legal costs regardless.
Yeah,
I just don't know what to do. I don't honestly, like, I was.
I get it, you understand it.
I can just tell you, this is what I mean, you have run much larger organizations and you're used to, I think, having
peace.
way more technology.
Yeah.
Way more. And these are
Yeah, yeah.
good. But there's only so many. And I just don't want us, I think.
Can we talk?
Sorry.
This been about they want us, you know, to roll over that. Keep them out of jeopardy.
There's no time.
Our job is to keep them out of jeopardy. You know, like, what's in it for us to do what they want to do? I understand for them, they're out of the lawsuit.
And that's.
We're out of the lawsuit too. We don't get anything out of it as far as that. I mean, that strikes me as inappropriate.
I'm sure.
We can't be acting.
Well, there's that, yeah.
Well,
I guess we left all of this drafting.
to the extent that that's the case, I think that their request is.
Well, and see, that's my.
It could
I
be
didn't-
framed in a more
Well, when I
complicated
see
fashion.
And,
You know, Green Mountain is identified as a service provider in their
I love
service plan.
that.
Doesn't make us a party to this.
But I would tell you.
You know, we talked.
And see,
Why aren't they just suing us?
I, not only do I not know that, I don't have anybody.
Yes.
That's the question. I and everyone I've talked to, attorneys, be baffled by that.
What I found, like.
Exactly.
Yeah, yeah.
And you
They start that.
Even if you see something, they'll just. Because they
I'm going back to my point,
Well,
is if they do nothing, then defaults against them.
I mean, they're.
Yeah.
What are they gonna do? Say, okay, you must provide waters, right?
Yeah.
They don't have any ability, so you.
Well, yeah, the worst scenario is
You're gonna be really sensitive. I'm just gonna say to myself.
you are ordered to sue.
We have to do something to it this year. So
So their concern is.
Yeah.
So the judge says, you must use your.
I don't think that's their concern. I haven't tried to discuss that with everybody, but I think that that's the worst case scenario.
Right.
Because then, I mean, you're right. Well, actually, maybe the worst case scenario is, no, you must build a treatment.
I mean, I.
Right. Like, you have to provide sanitary. service, now you have to provide a reason. That was the whole.
Right.
Yeah. Oh,
I don't think that that's really feasible. Because that's not part of the service plan.
Yeah.
Well,
As layman, I'm going, my God, I report this, I'm general manager, report it like, give me what I want or I kill the kid. Well, that's not gonna go. Seriously, no, I'm good friends.
Yeah, the kid is.
Here, yeah.
He says, this new, the city council loves him now, so it works out good. But
She had a good relationship.
that's good, you gotta go to city council.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, thank you.
did that happen?
What do you think?
So Dylan, I'll email you a bunch of information for Dole.
Okay.
That way you guys can take it over. And SDA too, if you do SDA too, like I have to do the transparency notice, list all the.
Yeah, we did. Copy Dana. Do you have Dana's?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, copy.
I was thinking of Julie.
Yeah, Dana does all of our special district compliance.
How'd you do it? Yeah, I heard from Dana actually sent me the procedures.
Yeah.
And there's a place in there, that there's a balance.
As well, as far as.
Yeah, I just figure if you could get your office involved and pay you guys, that way you don't pay Kristen. You know, because Kristen was doing all this type of paperwork, right?
Yeah.
And I would just pay you guys.
And so, and I just, it was one of those things, I just, honestly,
Kristen makes a lot of money. She has a PhD in PE, plus she's working for an engineering firm, so.
Yeah.
I could not touch it. I mean, and I'm part of that problem. Right? That's a big minor. I can get business. I asked you. And that's like, we not do that here. And that's when the report, he said to me. Right. Well, hopefully it's a lifeline, and it's a long way away. Right. It takes a lot of worry on it. Right. Okay, move on. Yep.
I'm thinking this risk management would be the Aurora Water.
I grew up in Aurora.
Oh, yeah.
You did?
Yeah, over by, it used to be Buckingham Square right there.
Oh, I remember that.
I grew up just by, Buckingham Road, basically.
Oh, well, is Buckingham Square, is that one right off?
Well, we
Hampton?
love that road.
Is that right off Hampton?
No, it's Havana and Mississippi are drums.
And maybe I'm thinking of something else.
Yeah.
I heard there's shops there now, but they leveled the whole mall.
It's actually pretty nice over there.
Yeah.
I miss all the fountains.
And,
I'm not sure you'd want to live over there anymore.
but even though I was in Aurora, we were in the Cherry Creek School District. And so I went to Cherry Creek High. It's kind of an odd shaped district.
Yeah, we were Cherry Creek as well.
We were Cherry Creek snobs.
Right, the boss?
Yeah,
Okay.
I said this last time, I love your little email blast.
Oh, well, thank you.
It brings me up to speed pretty quick, so I appreciate that, on the city council.
Yeah.
Yeah. I hope it's all accurate, though.
We try. Okay, as a matter of fact, that question did come up today in the last couple of days. Because there was, an article in the paper. that
Yeah.
Said this. Well, what I did was I forwarded the article.
Yeah.
Well, somebody comes back and says, no, that article is all wrong. And you need to correct it. And it's like, well, I don't know that it's wrong.
Yeah.
And for me to come out and say, forget what you read in the paper, this is the real truth. No, I'm gonna have it verified.
Yeah.
And so far, I'm not getting it verified. So I'm not gonna say a thing until somebody.
Yeah.
Prove it one way or the other. I mean, that's all I have is my credibility. And if I keep flip flopping, like, oh, this is it is, like, oh, never mind, this is what it is. Oh, never mind, this is what it is. Like, figure it out, let me know. That's what I'll pass on.
You feel you have a pretty big subscriber base to that, or?
Not really, it's about 100 people. And so, no, it's not numbers, but it's the people who care.
Well, I need to brag. I have a YouTube channel where I just hear we're hiking or do. I have 7,500 followers and I did nothing.
Really?
Posted some bicycle videos, hiking. Now I'm famous.
Well, there's a guy, one of my tax clients, he makes these, it sounds weird, but he's a Southwest like airline guy but he's all over and he takes Hot Wheels tracks and he sets up these Hot Wheel tracks and then he sets up these flames all around him, like Hawaii or wherever they're at.
Yeah.
And he does these videos of these different locations he's at with all these Hot Wheels going through all these flames all around. And he has like $189,000.
Oh, yeah, mine's minuscule.
And actually, he told me he was trying to, I guess, if you get enough, they'll start paying you,
Must have changed.
They send me.
like to advertise.
I didn't send me amounts of money every month.
They do?
Well,
How much? Like,
I don't wanna say this.
There's
was
no
cool.
reason.
Now, and the other thing is, you've got some sort of like a webpage or something, right?
Just personally, yeah, my
Yeah,
personal.
yeah, what I do,
Far
100 people is.
Is gonna have a game show, it'll be full size.
My email list.
oh, really?
So that I
Full
can-
size.
But
That model's
the other
not,
thing is,
I mean, I built
you're
by the
interesting.
hour.
I'm not, I'm incredibly
Oh,
dull.
it's different genres, you know. Some
There's a
people
lot
like
of
to
young
look at
kids
hiking
that have
videos. some
YouTube followers of
Some
some
want to hear about the
and
city
they're
council.
millionaires.
Yeah, not many. So it's a very small minority.
Cause they essentially, they pay you, because people, they'll put
I
advertisements on
didn't
your
say,
page.
hey,
Exactly,
look
that's
at
all
this.
about advertising.
I just put them up there and it just starts.
It's kind of shocking, like, that's just the undergirding of our economic world.
Isn't that weird?
Advertising, like that drives, that's the economic driver of our entire system.
Well, and what's funny is, you know, it's like, well, let's even go to professional sports. That's where all their money actually comes from.
Yeah.
It's not from revenues, from tickets, it's none of that. It's all the television advertising and all the contracts.
Oh, yeah.
It has nothing to do with what's actually going on.
Yeah.
I have 8:45.
We're back on. So do we need to say if we go, and I'm just talking out loud here. So if we went to an and I don't know this because I've not used executive search committees, could we say? We can use an executive search committee, but if we were to so choose, like say someone internally that we don't have to pay them. If the person internally wins, or do we have to pay them anyway?
Probably depends on the contract you
Yeah.
sign with.
The answer to your question is maybe.
Why don't we can survey if anybody would like to step forward on that before we engage a recruiter, if you want to go that route, we could. So post it, let everybody know of that option.
Okay.
Would that work?
Yep.
All right, again, would that be, Mr. Tice, could you let everybody know that if they are interested?
Yes, when everybody know they're interested in the district manager position.
Yeah, it has to be, it's considered a promotional opportunity, so it has to be made available, in-house as well. It doesn't have to be made available exclusively in-house, but it has to be made available to anyone for whom it's a promotional opportunity.
And can I apply for it?
Yeah.
I'm joking, of course.
Can't be on the board.
You would have to resign from the board,
yeah. I'd vote myself an increase.
Is that a fact though, because I'm.
I bet you it pays
Associated with other
more, I bet you it pays
organizations
more than $100 a month.
For a
Or
special,
probably.
for a special district.
It's different.
Yeah, so a director cannot be a compensated employee of the district. Technically, you
Are
get
anyway.
your $100 a meeting, but the IRS considers you an employee, but the state of Colorado does not.
Okay. And when we retire, if we wait long enough, we can get $3.87 a month retirement from para.
Is that what it comes out to?
I don't know.
You
I just-
cannot, the legislature rescinded the para benefits.
Oh, did they?
Yeah.
So does that mean
Do I get
instead of
this?
$87, I'll now get 90?
I mean, they're not just going forward, you no longer have para benefits, especially.
So we're paying into it though.
But do we have to pay into it?
We do.
I don't,
I don't know how your payroll processor handles your deductions from your,
Yeah, there's.
I know I get $87. That's what I know from my.
Well, yeah,
This
I
is
just
why I
have to
take no
feel it.
compensation. I don't want to deal with any of that crap.
Anyway, so
so we can let them know and immediately start looking, are we interested in doing, sounds like good, look for a recruiter rather than go through.
well, we can go to normal channels, but I've never used a recruiter. So any idea what they typically charge?
A lot.
Like what's a lot?
Well, I mean, I can only tell you the level I've
Okay.
helped recruit at. I do interviews for executive search firms. They're usually a year's salary.
You are kidding me.
No, but I'm talking about $500,000 employees and up.
Well, I would not be willing to pay them a year's.
No.
I personally would not.
I wouldn't either, but I don't know what it is in the.
I might be willing to give them 20%.
Well, I have an
15%.
unfair question for Mr. Tyus. Are there any channels you would recommend for this kind of search?
Yeah, the common channels to find district managers for any type of water utility are American Water Works Association, Water Environment Federation, and Colorado SDA has a
SDA, yeah.
the SDA has a site too. So those are the three organizations that, water professionals look at all levels.
I move that we approach those three organizations. Do I have a second
I'll second it.
discussion?
Who's
Yes.
we?
Yeah. What they do, they will post a job ad for us, so that's,
They won't do anything else for us.
Yeah.
Oh, is that it?
Yeah.
yeah, they're not a hiring or
What,
anything.
what did we do last time?
Kristen placed an ad with those, organizations. Yeah.
And we had
with
like
all
what,
those-
7 to 10 of them?
We
got a fair number of
We had
applicants.
12,
We did.
12 or 13,
Oh,
but
was
they
that many?
winnowed out quickly.
Yeah, indeed, and she went through them all.
I interviewed everybody, pre-interviewed and reported to the board. And through that process, a bunch of them fell out. They got other jobs or
Right.
did little research on what we were, and they said, well, wait a minute, no, I don't really want to do that.
Right.
We ended up with 5, I think.
Well, that's a good pool.
Yeah, and we had 2 finalists, interviewed those 2. And that's, how we got there.
Seems workable.
Except for the front end part,
Which is,
who's gonna who's gonna go
well, it
out?
was gonna be somebody other than me, of course, yeah.
Yeah, well,
What do you mean the front end part? Just getting the ad posted?
meeting all the legal requirements of how you approach hiring somebody.
Well, can't we just take our ad from the last time and
Add
update it?
5% to it?
I wouldn't recommend that. Because
Well-
there's just too much we don't know. I mean, I don't know what the.
But if
legal
we just take the
requirements-
ad, if we take the ad from last time, it had to meet the requirements.
I don't
And if
know.
we just do that and then put it out on the sites, I mean, if we got, say, 12,
Your requirements really kick in after you get applicants. So,
So we're okay just doing it this way?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
All right, I'm comfortable with that.
You probably should take a look back at the job description just to make sure that you are describing the job that you actually are hiring for. I don't remember. I think you used a job description that you used when you hired. Greg, maybe before even.
Yeah,
It has not been updated in a while.
yeah, I think she wrote it for Greg, but we did add some other things because this just, and we were supposed to take on the engineering part, and so we left that open
right?
for the possibilities of getting an engineer or not getting an engineer, going full-time or going part-time. It was a fairly, there were some broad characteristics in there,
Right.
which we can still do to keep in mind while we see, and I would.
Well, I would just assume like, and I don't know if it's possible to have him start or get it out there even in the next 2 weeks. Like if we can just do we need to update? Do we need to look at it and update it? Is that something that we can do?
We should.
And then just get it immediately onto those sites? Cause I really don't want this to stretch out for, cause with Kristen, wasn't it like 6-8 months? It was a long time.
There's a difference between when she was here and when we were looking for a new manager. I mean, that wasn't that whole time that she was here. We were still, that wasn't a whole under ad. I think we got it advertised fairly quickly and then.
It was about a 3-month
It
process.
was a 3-month
Yeah, I think we
For the
took
hiring.
30 days to reply to the ad.
Maybe that's what it was.
Yeah.
And that just, well,
Yeah.
like I said, every
frustrating
month
to
when I
them.
just saw all her bills, that just, and that's my hang up. That I just wasn't in my mind. Like, I understand, like, when I look at your bills, I sit here and hear what you do.
Yeah.
In her case, like, she would say, oh, here's 100 hours of time. And I just didn't see what she did for 100 hours. Do you know what I'm saying? So in my little pea brain accounting mind, I'm thinking she's really working 20, we're getting billed for 100, and she's living the good life. And I know that's my perception. It may not be reality, but that was my perception.
can we all take a look at the job description and see if there's anything else? I hesitate to approve that and I haven't had, and this just came up.
Well, no, but like, I don't know if he even had, do we have it just here on a? Like, is it just out in our record somewhere?
It should be pretty easily accessible.
You know, and I don't know if that's something you could find or just email to us. And then we can each look at it.
Right. Maybe commit to commenting by week's end or something.
Yes,
Yeah.
I mean, the one thing I don't want to
do.
do is drag our feet. I want to be as proactive as possible. I mean, I think time is not our friend. And I just think it's best to get on and find someone as opposed to letting it languish, because it just seemed like it always kept getting pushed out to me.
Do you have any, I think that this is a good time to look at other structures though while we're at it. Because we have seen that the staff take on a lot of the management duties and things. So there are, we think about evaluating.
I don't have it.
Like that.
I will tell you, kind of go along with Dave said earlier. I do think that the Sams, the Jessies, the Dougs, the people, I don't know who all, the people that are having to step up more from my standpoint,
Yes.
watching this, they need to be compensated for that.
Here's the whole job description in my offer letter.
Okay, good.
I think there's a lot, to be said, and that
Can we
was,
copy this maybe 5
Yeah, I'll
minutes?
copy it, but there it is, Todd. It's signed by Todd. Great guy.
Kind of opinionated.
Penny pincher.
I know.
if we keep being in this,
Give me a copy.
it doesn't matter if we keep being in this. But they have this structure already in place and they are doing things and they should, and that was a decision that we originally did not compensate them for. Year or two ago, because we had a new manager and we were supposed to go back to normal. So maybe we just say this is permanent way of operations and they have been doing it for a couple of years now and look at it like that.
As we're going to look at the old job description, maybe we might want to reach out to one or two of our potential flatline management people and ask them what they're looking for in a leader. What are they've been here longer than we have. What do they think a good district manager is? And does this meet what they're looking for? And
I think
I think that shows a little respect for the staff as well.
true. But I think they've given us a clear indication of what they want in a manager. And they were
Well,
pretty satisfied. with
one
what they
thing-
had.
If we look inside that I would potentially, I mean, I'm just looking at this, is it says that we're requiring a bachelor degree in, engineering business or another degree. Okay, it doesn't have to be engineering.
It was broad.
Yeah, because
Okay.
we had this discussion before about that.
Right.
At the time.
I don't know if you want to glance at that.
I'd appreciate being able to take a copy. man.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, all the buttons.
Okay.
We can
So-
certainly do better, commit to doing better than we did last time.
Well, that's what,
Yeah.
like I said, it seems like I watch a lot of things that we just keep kicking the ball down the road and we need to quit kicking the ball down the road. We need to make decisions.
Can we get you to buy into deciding some issues a little quicker than you might normally want to? Given,
Well, mine is 2 parts. Discuss it, vote on it. That's a 30-day period. That's not.
Well, by the time you get it out and I mean, this is going to span whether we want to or not.
sure.
It's gonna span a month or two before we even get,
And I'm not gonna make a stink about this one. Of course, get it out as soon as possible.
Okay.
But other things,
Okay, that's just what I'm asking. Is this which bucket is this in? I
Yeah,
didn't know.
this one's an emergency.
Okay, good. So we're all on the same page.
Yes.
Okay. So
And we just all commit to, trying to do it as quickly as we can, because last time, as I said, I was waiting for people to come back
right.
and it just waited and Jeff took just as long as everybody else.
Do we need a special meeting then maybe within a week to follow up on all of this?
We might. But we only, what's the rule, 24 hours now? The new law is 24 hours, so we don't have to do longer than that. So we just,
Maybe
What
make a
was it?
decision on.
as soon as we're ready, let's try to have a meeting.
Did we change the bylaws? like that? We're still on the bylaws. Didn't we change them?
Some
I don't remember.
I don't know about.
Doesn't matter. Our bylaws.
bylaws are irrelevant.
And sue yourself.
Yeah. If we have more notice in the bylaws.
Right.
All right, we'll take a look at the position description, see if there's any changes that need to be made, and if we can have answers into Mr. Tyus on any changes by Friday. Today's Tuesday. Take a look, then maybe we can schedule a meeting for next Tuesday to see if to discuss it further.
Yeah.
I don't anticipate I myself having significant changes
I have to remember, I'm getting my eyes surgery, but that's at the
just because it
following
was so broad.
Tuesday. Not
Right.
next to
So
the
then-
next other one.
I think this is a good time still to consider.
Really? Did you have the lens change or what?
We're
did
gonna
you
have a vacancy in.
Yeah,
less than
it's
2
the,
weeks.
Yeah, but we.
That's what I'm having
the light adjustable lens,
I will scan this in the morning and send it to all
six
you.
sessions over.
And if
a
you
month and a
want
half
to change
to
it,
adjust.
just let me
Oh,
know.
this is where they're taking out my.
And if you want,
Gentlemen.
it's up to you. I'm already have login for all these sites, so I could post this with somebody's name on it. So picture that if you want this to happen, it's up to you. So let's say I send this to you in the morning and then everybody has input, we make a final. And then I could post it on the American Water Works Association site, the Rocky Mountain Water and Environment site. And I can even post it on Indeed if you want. And I can post it on, well, I can't really post it on LinkedIn because it'd be under my name. And then the SDA site, but I can put somebody else as a contact, like, Director Hooks or something as a contact. And then when I fade
Will you be
away,
the contact?
Sure.
I have Roger contact, then everything will go to Roger, your email.
So here's a question, and I'm just talking out loud here with this. So if what if we had him post it tomorrow, but then we just updated it later? Because to me, I mean, if the person goes back to it, it'll just be the most recent one, right? So we could post it, take that one down and post a new one if we change some of the wording.
I feel like that would be misleading. I'd like to have something out there. And what if you look at it and you say it's completely wrong? Just wait until, it's a week.
Yeah, what if we made the decision on Tuesday to post it
Post it
on Wednesday? And then the other thought I had was, I know none of us can be compensated, but somebody maybe assigned manager interim just on a very part-time basis as a focal point. Is that possible?
You probably should have someone do that, yeah.
Off the board, one of us. Personnel issues, signing things.
Well, I don't think technically, according to Dylan, I don't think we can do that. It would
But
have
if
to
we're
be-
not compensated,
Oh, if we're not
Yeah,
compensated.
yeah.
Oh, okay. I thought you said if we were compensated.
No, you just need somebody to be the point of contact. I mean, you could just use board at, and then you all get everything. But then you need somebody to do the outreach, once you get down to, interviews, every point.
no, but what I'm suggesting is for all the routine HR stuff, everything that comes up on a day-to-day basis.
Oh,
An acting manager.
I don't think a board, I don't think a director should do that.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that gets you.
I think we're crossing lines.
I think you'd be good at it.
Thank you.
If we, okay, so I'm hearing, look at this, respond by Friday. Mr. Tice is also gonna be concurrently asking staff. Do you want to plan for a meeting on Tuesday? Otherwise, I think we can just plan on posting on Tuesday unless we see significant conversation points. Maybe we can ask Mr. Tice to let us know if that is necessary, or just can you send out a summary on Friday afternoon of the
So what if we say we have to have it in by like Friday at 10 AM? And that will give him, I don't know, would that give you some time to do any updates and send it out by like, say, early afternoon? I'm saying like if we put in comments, so like he sends this to us or we have this, we send him comments by Friday morning.
Yeah.
Are you saying then he adds those comments in, maybe in red, whatever, and then resends it back out to us? And then we decide if that's what we want to post by next Tuesday.
Okay.
That's what I'm asking.
I'm suggesting that we meet Tuesday, limit it to 45 minutes or whatever. I know it's impossible, but and make all the decisions then.
Just do the red lines, right?
I like it.
Okay.
Yeah, okay.
But still get comments in before Tuesday.
Yes, yeah, well,
I got surgery at 11 on Friday, so mine will be in before then.
Plan on a special meeting on Tuesday, comments in before then.
Okay.
If you have any other, that'll give us time to have any other ideas on what to go forward. What else could we be missing there? Nothing, because we'll be back on Tuesday.
but this sounds pretty efficient to me, seriously.
It's good.
I mean, heaven forbid there would have been an accident, and we lost a manager. We couldn't really respond much faster, so.
No. Excellent.
I think we're gonna find ourselves lucky we stumbled into Mr. Ghost.
Certainly.
Serendipity.
Excellent. All right.
Legal matters?
Nothing else.
Going.
You see nothing going on.
I like that.
So the 2023 coordination election notification form is the only thing specifically called out under the agenda. It is this. I have not heard any rumblings that you are planning to have a Tabor election this year, so I am recommending that this just be marked. No, you will not be participating. It's just a request from Jefferson County for them to plan out their November.
Do we need to make a motion?
No.
Okay.
I'm informing you. It's
Okay.
Manager level. I mean, tell me if you're planning to have a Tabor election.
No, we're not.
What is a Tabor? I know what Tabor is, but what's
Yeah.
the Tabor election?
Yeah, so in this, well, it would be to increase taxes.
Thank you, Mandy, for coming.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So if you were, there was an outside chance that, if you were up for loan forgiveness, for example, on a capital improvements project, you would have to, take that to the voters. Actually, you wouldn't because you're an enterprise, but that's one of the categories.
When bond issue have to, I assume, go out for election.
For a district, yes, but not for an enterprise. So you could do bonds if you could get, you could do bonds without a Tabor election. If you can show that you are able to repay those bonds out of just your rates and fees. Which you probably can as a district. Which depends on the level of bonding you're going out for.
Can you recoup bond funding in a sub-district,
Yes,
just for a sub-district such as?
well, okay, so not a sub-district, an enterprise. Yes,
Like Fed Center?
a sub-enterprise.
Well, right now, our whole district is considered an enterprise.
Yes, all you do is water and sanitation. So you fit under actually a pre-Tabor classification of enterprise, a water activities enterprise. Tabor expanded the enterprise categorization. But your district elected to be identified as an enterprise under water activity enterprise.
And an earlier board, I mean, a long time ago, voted.
That's what I'm saying. That's what you did. Yeah, it was like a 1996 resolution.
We could have numerous districts though, within our district,
That's a good question, yeah.
such as the Ruby Bridge. You didn't want to pay for the new bridge. Voters could elect to.
In all
Yeah.
seriousness, the Fed Center is a possibility.
Fed Center is distinct possible.
Yeah.
So on general legal matters, I'll just go through, small to big. The bylaws, I mentioned that the 4-member language, I'll get that included in the document. I submitted the audit response letter update. They requested, additional information since my March 8th original. Just an update on the exposures that the district might have. My partner John has been in conversation with both counsel for Cloaco and the bonding surety. He is continuing to proceed on both tracks, the complaint and the bond. I think he and I have talked about it, and he and I both.
Remind me, what we got, what's the case?
The red zone tank,
Oh,
we had
red
the
zone,
line
okay.
that failed.
That was a keyword, red zone, okay.
And I think he and I are both in agreement that the surety's just jerking us around, and not paying. So that's, the litigation is still on track. The 180-day period for the ice nodal malpractice litigation, came and went. I filed the status report saying the Big Sky case has been returned to the district court. The malpractice case needs to be continued to stay. The district and the directors are no longer parties to the Timmons litigation, so there's no update there. I talked about the election form. I asked Mike Ogborn for an update on the Big Sky case. If you had anything specific to say, you all should have received the notice of status conference. That's going to be on June 23rd. We'll know more after that about deadlines and
that conference is
June 23rd via WebEx.
WebEx.
Yes. And the sign-in information should be a part of the notice.
What? Your
The
last sentence.
sign-in information for the WebEx conference should be.
Oh,
the
sign
file.
it, sign.
Yeah, it'll be a link.
Clear on me.
His comments to me, Mike's comments to me were, I brought in another partner to assist with strategy, and I don't remember quite the expression that he used, but he's knee deep in the documents. And he's spoken at least to Karen. I don't know if he's spoken to you. If you've asked more specific questions, I hope he answered them. That,
Please answer any of my questions.
have you asked any questions?
Give him a whole page full of questions.
At the meeting list?
Then I sent it email version as well.
Well,
Now, we talked and it's like, he's getting his act together. Fine, but at some point, I'm looking for that confidence that you've done everything, you're ready.
mm,
At that point, show me that you're ready and you've done this.
Mm.
Otherwise, I'm not gonna, I mean, you gotta have time. I gotta realize that.
sure. And I haven't talked to him substantively about the case. That really concludes the open session matters that I have. Unless you have any questions for me.
Well, I guess I've one back to the surety bond. So there's not like rules that they have to follow to pay us. They can just decide whether they want to pay us or not.
Essentially, yeah. I mean, they're investigating the claim. That's the position that they're taking. So we've provided them the expert reports that we have, and I think that's all fair, but I think there's also, if they can delay this and never pay, they will. Like any insurer.
Yeah, just like Allstate or.
Well, that's what I'm,
Anybody else.
so then essentially a bond is, I guess I always thought of that as something like that you could fall back on, but I guess what I'm hearing is it's almost subjective instead of objective.
Yeah, it's more objective in. If, for example, Cablaco had not voluntarily participated in the removal of the failed lining and we had made a claim on the bond. Typically, what I would have expected to see is that the surety would have demanded that Cablaco participate in that and, cure the defective work. And the leverage they have is, or we're not gonna, you'll be unbondable as a contractor. But in this case, since they did fix the work, probably.
Or attempted.
They made the attempt. The surety has not been done wrong, and they're just gonna avoid paying if they can.
Okay, that was my question.
And, and if they don't pay, you sue them too, under the bond.
I have a question on the contract,
Okay,
or we are not signing that.
yeah, you should. this is, you have already approved this. This is the ravine design contract. You approved the bid. Yeah, so just signing the contract is an administrative function. It's not. The president signs contracts, so you can do that. Every month.
We could, but I didn't see it.
So why would we not sign it?
Well, that's fair. Yeah, you haven't seen it.
Cause I haven't.
Well, no, but I didn't know if there was a reason to not sign it.
No, I reviewed it. It's fine. It comports with the,
Can I sign it
Yeah.
at any time after this?
Yes.
Can I read it and then bring
yes.
questions so that?
My only request is that you do actually date this on the first page. It just often is omitted and then it makes it difficult for me to determine what the effective date is.
Okay. All right. Sign and date. Okay, I will do that and I can take this and return.
Yes.
Okay.
Return it at least to me, depending on how long you take with it, me and Jeff. I don't think you're gonna spend more than 2 weeks on it, but if you do.
We're back. All right.
Need a motion. Oh, I got a script. Time is now 9:54, and I have resumed the recording because the attorney-client communication has finished. The executive session has been concluded. The participants in the executive session were the board of directors, district manager Jeff Tyus, and myself, general counsel for the district. For the record, if any person who participated in the executive session believes that any substantial discussion of any matters not included in the motion to go into the executive session occurred during the executive session, or that any improper action occurred during the executive session in violation of the open meetings law, I would ask that you state your concerns for the record. Seeing none, the next agenda item is 12B.
Item 12B, executive session. I move into executive session for legal advice regarding the Ravine Bridge.
I second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, unanimous approval.
As the district's attorney, it is my opinion that the discussion of the matter announced in the motion to go into executive session constitutes privileged attorney-client communication. I am therefore recommending that no further record be kept until the executive session has been concluded. That is pursuant to C.R.S. 24-6-402 sub 4 sub E. The time is now 9:56, and I am turning the recording off. The executive session has been concluded. The time is now 10:31, and I have turned the recording back on because the attorney-client communication is finished. The participants in the executive session were the board of directors, district manager Jeff Tyus, and myself, general counsel, and Sam McKay came in midway through the discussion. For the record, if any person who participated in the executive session believes that any substantial discussion of any matters not included in the motion to go into the executive session occurred during the executive session, or that any improper action occurred during the executive session in violation of the open meetings law, I would ask you to state your concerns for the record. Seeing none, the next agenda item is number 13, new business.
All right, any new business? Next board meeting will be Tuesday next week,
20th.
regarding district manager position. Anything on your minds for the next regular meeting? I will be bringing in not the engineering stuff, more of our appellate stuff at that point. All right, motion to adjourn.
I move that we adjourn the meeting.
I second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, unanimous. Thank you all. Have a good evening.
Seconded it.